cornered him in his kitchen 3 weeks ago, waving her phone in his face like a victory flag. I found her, Ethan. She's perfect. Divorced, no kids, works in marketing. You're meeting her next Thursday. I didn't ask you to. You didn't ask me not to either. And that was how Ethan Cole, 32 years old, single father to a 7-year-old daughter who thought dinosaurs were still alive somewhere in Canada, ended up sitting alone in Laurent's, a restaurant so expensive they didn't even list prices on the menu. Just elegant descriptions and the quiet understanding that if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. His phone buzzed. He flipped it over, hope flickering briefly before it died. So sorry, something came up. Rain check? No apology for the 40 minutes he'd already spent here. No explanation. Just the digital equivalent of a shrug. Ethan let out a long breath and signaled for the waiter. The man appeared instantly, as if he'd been waiting in the shadows. Just the check, please. Of course, sir. Though I should mention, the lady ordered the wine before she departed. Ethan blinked. She what? The 2015 Bordeaux. It's already been opened and poured. The waiter gestured to the bottle sitting in an ice bucket beside the table, 2 glasses already filled. I'm afraid once opened, it must be purchased. How much? $420, sir. Ethan felt something crack inside his chest. Not anger, not quite. Just a tired, hollow laugh that wanted to escape but couldn't find the energy. $420. That was his electric bill and his daughter's ballet classes combined. That was groceries for 3 weeks if he was careful. Of course it is, he muttered. Of course. He reached for his wallet, already doing the math in his head. Credit card. He'd deal with it later. He always dealt with it later. I'll bring the check right away, sir. Ethan nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He picked up one of the wine glasses and took a sip. It tasted like bankruptcy. That's when he heard it. A woman's voice, tight and controlled, cutting through the ambient noise of the restaurant. I'm sure he's just running late. Ethan glanced up. 3 tables over, a woman sat alone, her back straight, her hands folded on the table in front of her. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than his car, her dark hair pulled back in a way that was both severe and elegant. Even from here, Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders. Across from her stood a waiter, young and uncomfortable. Of course, ma'am, though it has been nearly an hour. I'm aware of the time. Would you perhaps like to order an appetizer while you wait? No, thank you. The waiter retreated and the woman sat perfectly still, too still, like she was holding herself together by force of will alone. Ethan looked away. Not his business. He had his own humiliation to process. But then he heard another voice, this one male, smug. Victoria? Victoria Hale? The woman's spine somehow became even straighter. Marcus. Wow, I almost didn't recognize you without an entourage. The man, Marcus, was tall, expensively dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. He wasn't alone. 2 other men flanked him, drinks in hand, already grinning. What are you doing here all by yourself? I'm not by myself. I'm waiting for someone. Sure you are. Marcus glanced at his friends, then back at her. Let me guess, another corporate merger disguised as a date? Or did Daddy set this one up for you? Victoria's jaw tightened. Marcus, if you'll excuse me. Come on, we used to be friends. Before you decided you were too good for everyone who actually liked you for you and not your bank account. He leaned against her table, deliberately invading her space. So who is this mystery man? CEO? Politician? Or did you finally lower your standards? Please leave. I'm just curious, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you got stood up. He said it loud enough that the tables around them went quiet. The great Victoria Hale, untouchable, unreachable, and completely alone on a Friday night. The silence that followed was excruciating. Ethan watched as Victoria's carefully constructed composure began to crack. Her hands, still folded on the table, were trembling slightly. Her eyes were bright with something that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite tears. And Ethan, who had spent the last year of his life trying very hard to mind his own business, to keep his head down and his daughter safe and his heart sealed behind walls that had taken months to build. Ethan stood up. He didn't think about it, didn't plan it. If he had, he would have talked himself out of it. but his legs were moving before his brain caught up, carrying him across the restaurant toward the woman who was being quietly destroyed in front of a room full of strangers. "Sorry, I'm late." The words came out before he could stop them. Victoria's head snapped up, her eyes meeting his. They were dark, sharp, and utterly bewildered. Marcus turned, sizing Ethan up with a single glance. Ethan was aware of how he must look: off-the-rack suit, scuffed shoes, the kind of ordinary that didn't belong in a place like this. "And you are?" Marcus asked. Ethan ignored him. He kept his eyes on Victoria, hoping she'd understand, hoping she'd play along. "Traffic was insane. I should have called." For a long moment, Victoria just stared at him. Ethan could see her mind working, calculating, trying to figure out what game he was playing. Then something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, but desperate enough to try. "It's fine," she said carefully. "You're here now." Ethan pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. His heart was hammering so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. Marcus laughed. "You're kidding. This is your date? Him?" "Is there a problem?" Ethan asked, finally looking at the man. "No problem at all." Marcus's smile was all teeth. "Just surprised, that's all. I mean, Victoria usually goes for a certain caliber." "Marcus," Victoria's voice was ice. "Leave." "I'm just saying, she asked you to leave," Ethan said. He kept his voice level, but there was an edge to it now. "Twice." Marcus's smile faded. He looked between them, clearly trying to decide if this was worth pushing. Then he shrugged. "Whatever. Enjoy your evening." He walked away, his friends trailing after him, their laughter following them like smoke. The silence that settled over the table was almost worse than the confrontation. Ethan became acutely aware that he was now sitting across from a complete stranger who he had just, what? Rescued? Crashed? He wasn't even sure what to call it. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. "Don't mention it." "I mean it. You didn't have to do that." Ethan shrugged, uncomfortable with the gratitude. "Yeah, well, I know what it feels like to get stood up on a Friday night. Solidarity, I guess." A small, surprised laugh escaped her. "You too, 43 minutes ago." "Mine was an hour and 12 minutes. Ouch." They sat in silence for a moment. Ethan should leave. Should go back to his table, pay for the stupid wine, and get the hell out of here before this got any weirder. But something kept him in the chair. "So," Victoria said, "what happens now?" "I honestly have no idea." She glanced around the restaurant. People were still watching, though they were trying to be subtle about it. "They're going to talk. Marcus will make sure of it. Let them talk." "You don't understand. I can't." She stopped herself, jaw tight. "My reputation is all I have in my world. One rumor, one scandal, and I'm done." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about? You're Victoria Hale. I don't know much, but I know that name. You own half the city. I run companies. I manage assets. But the people who actually own things? They'll turn on me the second they think I'm weak. And being stood up at Laurent's while Marcus Henley broadcasts it to everyone he knows?" She closed her eyes briefly. "That's weakness. That's just being human. In my world, that's the same thing." Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying her. She was younger than he'd initially thought. Maybe 30, 31. But there was something ancient in her eyes, like she'd been carrying weight for far too long. "So what would make this better?" he asked. "Hypothetically." Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. "I don't know. If I wasn't alone, maybe. If there was proof that I wasn't stood up, that I was here with someone who chose to be here." The idea hit Ethan like a lightning strike. Stupid, reckless, absolutely insane. But then again, so was sitting in an overpriced restaurant drinking $400 wine. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small velvet box he'd been carrying for weeks. His sister had given it to him after their grandfather died, insisting he take it. "For when you're ready," she'd said. He'd kept it with him like a talisman, a reminder that maybe someday things would be different. His hands moved before his brain could catch up, before reason could intervene. Ethan stood up, walked around the table, and dropped to one knee. The restaurant went silent. Victoria's eyes went wide. "What are you..." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, the one he'd used to propose to Ethan's grandmother in 1962. "Marry me," Ethan said. Victoria stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Excuse me? You need proof you weren't stood up, that someone chose you." "Well, here it is." He kept his voice low, meant only for her. "Play along or don't. But if you say yes, Marcus Henley and everyone else in this room will have to eat their words." "You're insane." "Probably. I don't even know your name." "Ethan. Ethan Cole." Victoria looked at the ring, then at him, then at the room full of people who were now openly staring, phones already out, cameras ready. He could see the calculation in her eyes, the same desperate math he'd been doing all night. Say yes and save face, say no and confirm every cruel thing Marcus had implied. Her hand trembled as she reached out, not for the ring, for his hand. Her fingers were cold. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay?" "Yes, I'll marry you." The restaurant erupted. Applause, gasps, the click, click, click of camera phones capturing the moment from every angle. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger. It was slightly too big, but it stayed, and stood up, pulling her to her feet. She was taller than he'd expected. Even without heels, she nearly met his eyes. "What did we just do?" she breathed. "I have absolutely no idea." A waiter appeared with champagne. Someone sent over dessert. The manager himself came by to offer congratulations and comp their meal. The whole thing took on a surreal, dreamlike quality, like Ethan was watching it happen to someone else. It wasn't until they were outside, standing on the sidewalk in the cool night air, that reality crashed back in. "This is going to be everywhere by morning," Victoria said. She was looking at her phone, her face pale in the screen's glow. "It's already on 3 social media platforms. Someone tagged a gossip blog." Ethan felt his stomach drop. "Can you delete it?" "Delete it? Ethan, this went viral in under 4 minutes. There's no deleting this." "So what do we do?" Victoria looked up at him, and for the first time since he'd sat down at her table, he saw real fear in her eyes. "We stay engaged, at least for a while. Long enough that it looks real. That this wasn't just, whatever this was, a fake engagement. A strategic arrangement." She said it like she was trying to convince herself. "We play the part in public. Let people believe it. Then in a few months, we quietly end things. Clean break. No scandal. And if people find out we're lying, then we're both ruined. Me for the deception, you for..." She trailed off, really looking at him for the first time. "Who are you, Ethan Cole? Really?" "No one important, single dad. I work in IT for a medical supply company. I have a daughter who thinks I'm the most boring person alive. And apparently, as of tonight, I'm engaged to a billionaire." Victoria laughed. It was a sharp, slightly hysterical sound. "This is the worst decision I've ever made." "Same. We'll need rules, boundaries. This is a business arrangement, nothing more." "Fine by me. Public appearances when necessary, but we maintain separate lives otherwise. No personal involvement." "Got it." "And when this is over, we walk away clean. No hard feelings, no complications." Ethan nodded. It sounded simple enough. Logical. Safe. A black car pulled up to the curb. The driver got out and opened the door for Victoria. "This is me," she said. "Right." She started to get in, then paused. "Ethan, thank you. For tonight. For not letting me face that alone." "Yeah, anytime." The door closed, the car pulled away, and Ethan was left standing on the sidewalk alone, his grandfather's ring on the finger of a woman he'd known for less than an hour. His phone buzzed, a text from his sister. "OMG, is that you? Call me right now." Below it, a link to a video. Ethan clicked it, his stomach sinking. There he was, on his knee, ring box open, the whole scene captured in shaky phone footage. The caption read, "Mystery man proposes to billionaire Victoria Hale at Laurent's. Watch till the end." 47,000 views, and climbing. "Oh no," Ethan whispered. "What did I do?" "What?" The next morning hit like a freight train. Ethan woke up to 73 text messages, 14 missed calls, and the sound of his daughter singing the theme song to her favorite cartoon in the kitchen. For exactly 3 seconds, he thought maybe last night had been a weird stress dream. Then he looked at his phone. The top headline on every news site: Victoria Hale engaged to unknown suitor in shocking restaurant proposal. Below it, photos. Him kneeling, her looking stunned. The ring clearly visible. And in the corner of one shot, Marcus Henley's face frozen in an expression of absolute disbelief. Dad, you're famous! Ethan stumbled out of bed to find his daughter, Sophie, standing in the hallway with his laptop. She'd pulled up a gossip site with a slideshow of last night's photos. Soph, where did you... Aunt Jenna sent me the link. She said you did something crazy. Sophie's eyes were bright with excitement. Is that really you? Did you really propose to someone? Do I get a new mom? Whoa, slow down. No. I mean, yes, but no. It's complicated. She's pretty. Is she nice? Ethan had no idea how to answer that. He barely knew Victoria Hale. Nice wasn't a word that seemed to fit her world. Listen, kiddo, I need to make some phone calls. Can you eat breakfast without burning the house down? I'm 7, not stupid. That's not a yes. Fine. Cereal, no fire required. Ethan retreated to his bedroom and dialed the number Victoria had texted him at 2 a.m. She answered on the first ring. Have you seen it? All of it. My daughter found the laptop slideshow. I've had 16 interview requests since 5 this morning. My PR team is having a collective breakdown. The board is demanding a meeting, and my father... She stopped abruptly. We need to talk. In person. Today. I can't. I have Sophie until 5. Bring her. I'm not bringing my daughter into... Ethan. Victoria's voice was strained. Every major news outlet in the city wants to know who you are. They're digging. And when they find out about your ex, about what happened, how do you know about that? A pause. I have resources. Anger flared in Ethan's chest. You investigated me. Of course I did. This morning, the second I woke up, I needed to know who I was tied to. She didn't sound apologetic, just pragmatic. You were married to Vanessa Reeves. She had an affair with your former business partner. The divorce finalized 14 months ago. You lost the company, the house, and custody got messy before you settled on joint. Ethan closed his eyes. Hearing it laid out like that, clinical and cold, brought back every ounce of humiliation he'd spent a year trying to forget. They're going to find this, Victoria continued, and when they do, they're going to paint you as the bitter ex looking for a payday. They're going to destroy you. So what do you want me to do? We control the narrative. We give them the story we want them to have, but we need to be on the same page. No surprises, no secrets. I don't have secrets. Everyone has secrets, Ethan. He thought about the stack of unpaid medical bills in his desk drawer. The credit card he'd maxed out to cover Sophie's school expenses. The nights he'd laid awake wondering if he was failing as a father because he couldn't afford the kind of life Vanessa could give their daughter. Where do you want to meet? He asked quietly. My place. I'll send a car. 2 hours. Fine. And Ethan, dress nicely. We're going to be photographed. The car that arrived at Ethan's apartment was the kind of vehicle that made neighbors stop and stare. Black, sleek, with tinted windows and a driver who opened the door like Ethan was someone important. Sophie was vibrating with excitement in the back seat. This is the coolest thing ever. Are we going to a mansion? Does she have a pool? Can I swim in it? We're not swimming. We're talking. You're going to sit quietly and not touch anything. You never let me have fun. That's my job description. Professional fun ruiner. The drive took them out of Ethan's modest neighborhood and into the part of the city where buildings had names instead of addresses. Victoria's apartment was in a high-rise that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie, all glass and steel reaching toward the clouds. The driver escorted them to a private elevator that opened directly into a penthouse suite. Victoria was waiting in the living room. She'd changed since last night, now wearing tailored pants and a silk blouse that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. But her face looked tired, the careful makeup not quite hiding the shadows under her eyes. Hi, Sophie said brightly. I'm Sophie. Are you my dad's fiancée? Victoria blinked, clearly not prepared for a 7-year-old's directness. Yes, temporarily. Cool. Do you have any snacks? Sophie, Ethan warned. What? I'm hungry. The car didn't have snacks. Victoria's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. I think we can manage that. The kitchen is through there. Help yourself. Sophie darted off before Ethan could stop her. I'm sorry, he started, but Victoria waved him off. It's fine. Actually, it's good she's here. We need to discuss how this affects her, too. They sat in chairs that were more art than furniture, expensive and uncomfortable. Between them, a coffee table held a stack of newspapers, all with variations of the same headline. I spoke to my legal team this morning, Victoria said. They drafted a contract, terms of our arrangement, duration, public obligations, financial considerations. Financial. I'm not taking your money. This isn't charity, Ethan. You're about to become a very public figure. You'll need security, a better apartment, clothes appropriate for events. This is going to cost you. The contract ensures you're compensated for your time and the disruption to your life. I don't want to be compensated. I just want this to be over. It's barely begun. She pushed a tablet toward him. On the screen was a detailed timeline. We're looking at minimum 3 months. 6 would be better, long enough to seem real, but not so long it becomes unmanageable. 3 months of pretending to be in love with you. 3 months of appearing in public together occasionally, attending events, being photographed, giving 1, maybe 2 carefully controlled interviews. She met his eyes. I won't ask you to lie to your daughter, but in public we sell this. We make them believe it. Ethan looked at the contract, pages and pages of legal jargon he'd need a dictionary to understand. What happens if I say no? Then we're both crucified in the press. You as the con artist who tried to trap me as the desperate fool who fell for it. Your ex will have a field day with custody arguments, and Sophie, Victoria's voice softened slightly. She'll grow up seeing her father torn apart online. It was a threat wrapped in concern, and they both knew it. What do you get out of this? Ethan asked. Really? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, smaller. Proof that I'm not what they think I am, that I'm more than my father's daughter, more than a portfolio and a last name. She looked down at the ring on her finger. Even if it's fake, at least for a little while, people will think someone chose me for me. The vulnerability in those words hit Ethan harder than any threat could have. He recognized it, the same desperate need to be seen as something other than the role life had assigned. Sophie came back carrying a plate of cookies and a glass of milk. Your kitchen is huge, like 5 of our kitchens. Do you even cook? No, Victoria admitted. That's sad. Cooking is fun. Dad makes really good pancakes. You should try them sometime. Maybe I will. Sophie climbed onto the couch, completely at home. So if you guys are getting married, does that mean you love each other? Ethan and Victoria exchanged a look. It's complicated, Ethan said carefully. That's what adults always say when they don't want to explain things. Sophie took a bite of cookie. My mom says you have bad judgment, Dad, but I think you're doing okay. She seems nice. Ethan felt his face burn. Sophie, it's true. Mom said it on the phone this morning. She said you've completely lost your mind and she's calling her lawyer. Victoria's expression sharpened. Your ex is involving lawyers? She likes to threaten, doesn't usually follow through. We should be prepared anyway. I'll have my team reach out to yours. I don't have a team. I have a guy named Jeff who helped me with the divorce paperwork. Not anymore. As of today, you're represented by Morrison and Chase. They're the best family law firm in the state. I can't afford. It's covered in the contract, page 7, section 4. Ethan stared at her. This was already spiraling beyond anything he'd imagined. Dad? Sophie had finished her cookie and was looking between them with the too knowing eyes of a kid who'd spent a year watching her parents fall apart. Is this going to be like with Mom, where you pretend everything's fine but it's actually bad? The question knocked the air out of Ethan's lungs. No, sweetheart. This is different. How? Because He looked at Victoria, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. Because we're being honest about what this is. No pretending. But you're engaged. That's pretending to be in love. Kids were too smart for their own good. You're right, Victoria said, surprising both of them. We are pretending in public, but in private with you we're going to tell the truth. This is an arrangement your dad and I made to help each other out. It's temporary, but while it lasts, I promise I'll do my best not to make things harder for you. Sophie considered this. Okay, but if you hurt my dad, I'll be mad at you forever. That's fair. And you have to come to my dance recital next month. Sophie, Ethan started. Those are my terms, Sophie said firmly. Take it or leave it. Victoria's lips twitched into an almost smile. Dance recital. I'll be there. With flowers. The big kind. Noted. They shook hands solemnly, and Ethan felt something shift. This was real now. Not just him and Victoria navigating an impossible situation, but Sophie in the middle of it, forming her own attachments and expectations. I need air, Ethan said abruptly. Sophie, stay here. Don't touch anything expensive. Everything here is expensive. He stepped out onto the balcony, the city sprawling below him in every direction. Up here, the noise of the streets was distant, muted, just wind and the faint hum of traffic far below. The door opened behind him. Victoria joined him at the railing, keeping a careful distance between them. Your daughter is direct, she said. She's been through a lot. She doesn't waste time on bullshit anymore. I like her. Don't. Victoria turned to look at him. Excuse me? Don't like her. Don't get attached. This ends in 3 months, remember? You walk away, we walk away. Clean break. No complications. I'm aware of the terms. Are you? Because Sophie already decided you're coming to her dance recital. She's already fitting you into her life. And when you disappear, it's going to hurt her. I won't disappear. We'll... What? Stay friends? Ethan laughed bitterly. You live in a penthouse in the sky. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment where the heater doesn't work half the time. Our worlds don't overlap, Victoria. They never will. She was quiet for a long moment. You're right, but we're here now. And for the next few months, our worlds are going to overlap whether we like it or not. So we can either fight it every step of the way, or we can make the best of it. The best of a lie. The best of a necessary arrangement. Ethan turned to face her fully. Why did you really say yes last night? And don't give me the reputation speech. I saw your face. You were terrified. Victoria's composure cracked just for a second. Because I'm tired of being alone. Even if it's pretend, even if it's temporary. For one night, I didn't have to be the woman everyone thinks I am. I could just be someone who got proposed to in a restaurant. Someone normal. I'm not normal. I'm a disaster. So am I. We're just good at hiding it. They stood there, 2 disasters pretending to be whole, and Ethan felt something dangerous stir in his chest. Something like understanding, like recognition. If we're doing this, he said quietly, we do it right. No lies to Sophie, no using her as a prop for photos. She stays out of this as much as possible. Agreed. And if at any point this gets too messy, if it starts to hurt her, we end it, contract or no contract. Victoria extended her hand. Deal. Ethan shook it. Her grip was firm, businesslike. But her hand was still cold, just like last night. They went back inside to find Sophie had discovered Victoria's collection of first edition books and was carefully examining each one. These are really old, she announced. You could sell them for a lot of money. They're not for sale, Victoria said. They're for reading. Have you read them all? Most of them. What's your favorite? Victoria paused, clearly not used to being asked personal questions. Pride and Prejudice. That's the one with the guy who's mean but actually nice, right? More or less. Sounds fake. Victoria laughed, a real laugh this time, surprised and genuine. Maybe it is. Ethan's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk, now. Vanessa. His stomach dropped. What is it? Victoria asked, reading his expression. My ex. She wants to meet. When? Knowing her? As soon as possible. Victoria's jaw set. Then we go together. United front. That's not necessary. Ethan, she's going to try to use this against you. Spin it as instability. Evidence that you're not fit to have equal custody. You need backup. She's not that. He stopped. Vanessa was absolutely that vindictive when she wanted to be. Fine. Together. Good. Because the car is already waiting downstairs. Ethan blinked. How did you... I had my assistant track her phone. She's at Cafe Meridian, downtown, 20 minutes away. That's insane and possibly illegal. Victoria shrugged. Welcome to my world. They left Sophie with Victoria's assistant, a woman named Claire who seemed unfazed by suddenly being responsible for a 7-year-old, and took the car downtown. The cafe was the kind of place Vanessa loved. Trendy, overpriced, full of people pretending to work on screenplays. She was sitting at a corner table, her laptop open but ignored, her attention fixed on the door. When she saw Ethan walk in with Victoria Hale, her expression went through several emotions in rapid succession. Surprise, anger, calculation, and finally, a cold smile. Ethan, and you must be the famous fiancé. Victoria. She slid into the booth across from Vanessa with practiced grace. Vanessa, I presume. I would say it's nice to meet you, but I don't believe in starting relationships with lies. Vanessa's smile was sharp. Unlike some people. Ethan sat down next to Victoria, feeling like he was about to witness a collision. What do you want, Vanessa? What I want is to make sure my daughter isn't being dragged into whatever midlife crisis you're having. She gestured at Victoria. No offense, but you're, what, 30? A billionaire? And you're marrying a broke IT guy with baggage? Forgive me for being skeptical. Your skepticism is noted, Victoria said coolly, but my relationship with Ethan isn't your concern. It's my concern when it affects Sophie. Sophie is fine. She's excited, actually. Of course she is. Kids get excited about all sorts of things that are bad for them. Vanessa leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You two are going to quietly end this farce. Ethan is going to admit he had a moment of temporary insanity, and we're all going to move on with our lives. And if we don't? Ethan asked. Vanessa pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was an email draft. Then I file for emergency sole custody. I have 3 character witnesses ready to testify that your judgment has become erratic, that you're involving Sophie in unstable relationships, that you're prioritizing your own needs over hers. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. You wouldn't. Try me. Victoria picked up the phone, read the email, and then did something Ethan didn't expect. She laughed. This is your play? Empty threats and speculation? She slid the phone back. Please, file your motion. My lawyers will have it dismissed before it reaches a judge. And then I'll file a countersuit for harassment, followed by a very public statement about how you're attempting to control your ex-husband's personal life out of spite. Vanessa's smile faltered. You can't. I absolutely can, and I will. Because here's what you don't understand, Vanessa. Ethan isn't alone anymore. He has resources now. He has protection. And if you try to use Sophie as a weapon against him, you'll find out exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect my fiancé. The word fiancé landed like a bomb. Ethan stared at Victoria. She'd said it with such conviction, such protective fire, that for a second he almost believed it himself. Vanessa recovered quickly, but the calculation in her eyes had shifted. This is really what you want, Ethan? To tie yourself to someone you don't even know? To drag Sophie into a circus? What I want, Ethan said quietly, is for you to stop using our daughter as leverage every time you don't like something I do. I want to raise her in peace. And yeah, this is complicated and weird and probably a little crazy. But it's my choice, not yours. Vanessa stood up. Fine, make your mistakes, but when this falls apart, and it will, don't expect me to clean up the mess. She left without looking back. Ethan and Victoria sat in silence for a long moment. Thank you, Ethan finally said. Don't thank me. I just declared war on your ex-wife. She started it. True. Victoria's hands were shaking slightly. She folded them on the table, hiding it. But now she knows this is real, or real enough. That speech you gave, about protecting me, You sounded like you meant it. Victoria met his eyes. Maybe I did. Something passed between them. Not quite understanding, not yet trust, but the beginning of something. An alliance forged in mutual desperation, maybe. Or maybe something more complicated than that. We should get Sophie, Ethan said. We should. But neither of them moved. They sat there in the trendy cafe, two people who'd made the worst possible decision and were now stuck seeing it through. 3 months, Victoria said softly. 3 months, Ethan agreed. No complications. Right, no complications. They both knew it was already too late for that. The fallout from the cafe confrontation came faster than either of them expected. By the time they got back to Victoria's apartment to pick up Sophie, Ethan's phone was exploding with notifications. His sister had called 6 times. His mother had left a voicemail that started with, "What in the world are you thinking?" and ended with, "Call me immediately." Even his boss had sent a text asking if he needed time off to deal with personal matters. Sophie was in the living room building an elaborate tower out of Victoria's collection of decorative crystal paperweights, each one probably worth more than Ethan's car, while Claire watched with the nervous expression of someone who'd been told not to let the child break anything. "Dad, look how high I got it." "That's great, Soph. Can you carefully put those back now?" "But I'm not done. Now please." Sophie sighed dramatically but started dismantling her tower with exaggerated care. Victoria watched with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. "She's got good spatial reasoning," Victoria said quietly. "She gets it from her mom. Vanessa's an architect. And what does she get from you?" Ethan thought about it. Stubbornness, and a tendency to make really bad decisions at expensive restaurants. That almost smile flickered across Victoria's face again. Could be worse traits to inherit. His phone buzzed. Another text from his sister. "Mom is losing it. Call her." "I need to deal with family," Ethan said. "Can we—" "Go. Claire can arrange a car to take you home. I can take the subway." "Ethan." Victoria's voice was patient but firm. "You're engaged to me now. The subway means crowds. Crowds mean photos. Photos mean captions like 'Billionaire's fiancé can't afford car service.' Do you want that?" "I don't want any of this." "Too late. We're here." She pulled out her phone. "I'm sending you Claire's number. From now on, she coordinates your schedule. Security, transportation, anything you need. I don't need a handler. You need someone making sure you don't accidentally walk into a media ambush on your way to the grocery store." Victoria's tone softened slightly. "I know this feels invasive, but trust me, it's necessary." Sophie finished putting away the paperweights and bounded over. "Are we leaving? Can we come back? Victoria has really good cookies." "We'll see, kiddo." "That means no," Sophie informed Victoria sagely. "Adults always say, 'we'll see,' when they mean no." "Noted," Victoria said. "But for the record, you're welcome back anytime. The cookies will be here." Sophie's face lit up. Ethan felt that dangerous thing in his chest again, the fear of his daughter getting attached to something temporary. The car ride home was quiet. Sophie fell asleep against the window, and Ethan stared at his phone, dreading the conversation he was about to have. When they got home, he tucked Sophie into bed. She barely woke up long enough to brush her teeth, and then stood in his kitchen, staring at his phone like it might explode. Finally, he called his mother. She answered before the first ring finished. "Ethan Michael Cole, what on earth is going on?" "Hi, Mom." "Don't hi, Mom, me. I wake up this morning to 17 messages asking if I knew my son was engaged." "Engaged? To a woman I've never met, never even heard you mention, and from what I can tell, you've known for approximately 5 minutes. It's been longer than 5 minutes." "How long?" Ethan did the math. "About 36 hours. His mother made a sound that was half gasp, half laugh, full disbelief. "You're joking. Please tell me you're joking." "I wish I was." "Ethan, honey, I love you, but have you completely lost your mind? After Vanessa, after everything you went through, you're jumping into another relationship with someone you barely know? It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" He couldn't tell her the truth. The contract he'd signed, which he still hadn't fully read, had entire sections about confidentiality, about what happens if anyone finds out this is an arrangement. "It's complicated," he said weakly. "That's what you said about Vanessa 3 months before everything fell apart." The comparison stung because it was accurate. He'd ignored every red flag with Vanessa, convinced himself that love could overcome incompatibility, different values, the growing gap between who they were and who they pretended to be. "This is different," he said, even though he wasn't sure how. How? How is it different? Because Victoria was honest about what this was. Because there were no illusions, no false promises. They were both going in with eyes open, knowing exactly what they were getting. But he couldn't say that. "I know it looks crazy from the outside, Mom, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Silence. Then, quieter. "Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. "What?" "Are you happy, Ethan? Because you haven't been. Not for a long time. And if this woman, whoever she is, makes you happy, even if it seems fast, even if it seems impossible, then maybe I don't need to understand it." Ethan's throat tightened. "I don't know if happy is the right word." "Then what is?" "Less alone, maybe." His mother sighed. "Okay, but I want to meet her, properly, not through a tabloid photo. I'll arrange something. And Ethan, if she hurts you, I'm driving up there and I will make her regret it, billionaire or not." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. "I believe you." After they hung up, he sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. Through the wall, he could hear Sophie's white noise machine humming. Outside, traffic sounds. Normal life, continuing on while his spiraled into something unrecognizable. His phone lit up. A text from Victoria. "First public appearance is Saturday. Charity gala, black tie. Claire will arrange a fitting for a tux tomorrow." Another text. "Bring Sophie if you want. There's a children's program. She might enjoy it." And then after a pause, "Thank you for today, for backing me up with your ex. You didn't have to do that." Ethan stared at the messages. 3 months ago, his biggest concern was making rent on time. Now he was texting with a billionaire about charity galas and tux fittings. He typed back, "You backed me up first, we're even." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Victoria. "Partners?" Ethan. "Partners." He went to bed feeling like he'd made either the best decision or the worst mistake of his life, and he had no idea which. The next 3 days were a blur. Claire turned out to be terrifyingly efficient. She showed up at Ethan's apartment at 7 a.m. Thursday, with coffee, a day planner, and a complete overhaul of his life. "Your current schedule won't work," she announced, sitting at his kitchen table while Sophie ate cereal and watched with fascination. "You're working 9 to 5 at Davidson Medical Supply, correct?" "Correct." "That needs to change. Victoria has obligations in the evenings, dinners, events, meetings. You need flexibility." "I can't just quit my job." "I'm not suggesting you quit. I'm suggesting we negotiate a flexible arrangement. Work from home 3 days a week. Attend events as needed. Davidson will agree. The PR from having Victoria Hale's fiancé on staff will be worth the accommodation." "You can't possibly know that," Claire smiled. "I already spoke to your supervisor this morning. It's arranged." Ethan stared at her. "You what?" "I have your new laptop arriving this afternoon. It will have you set up remotely by tomorrow. Any questions?" "About 1,000, but I don't think I want the answers." Claire moved on. "Saturday's gala, the Children's Foundation benefit. Victoria is a major donor. She'll be expected to speak. You'll sit at her table, participate in the auction, be photographed. Standard protocol. What's standard protocol for not having any idea what I'm doing? Stay close to Victoria. Smile. If anyone asks how you met, tell them the restaurant story. It's public anyway. Keep it simple. Keep it charming. And whatever you do, don't mention the word fake or arrangement or contract. Wasn't planning on it." "Good." Claire made a note in her planner. Sophie's ballet recital is the 18th. Victoria has it blocked on her calendar. She'll need to leave the Northbridge Foundation dinner early to make it. Ethan blinked. She actually put it on her calendar? She takes commitments seriously. Speaking of which, Claire slid a folder across the table. Your custody agreement with Vanessa. I need to understand the constraints. Victoria's legal team wants to ensure we don't inadvertently violate any terms. This is insane. This is thoroughness. There's a difference. Sophie, who'd been quietly listening to everything, piped up. Are you Dad's assistant now? I'm Victoria's assistant, Claire corrected gently. But I'm helping your dad too. Do you like Victoria? Very much. Is she nice to work for? Claire considered this. She's demanding, she has very high standards, but she's fair, and she cares about the people around her, even if she doesn't always show it the way other people do. Dad cares about people too. He's just bad at showing it. Sophie, Ethan warned, it's true. You never tell anyone when you're upset. You just get really quiet and do dishes. Claire's lips twitched. Noted, the aggressive dishwashing is a tell. The tux fitting happened that afternoon at a place so expensive they offered champagne while you waited. Ethan stood on a platform while a tailor with an Italian accent made minute adjustments, pinning and measuring with the intensity of a surgeon. The shoulders, they are good, strong, but we take in here... He pinched fabric at Ethan's waist. You are not eating enough. Too thin. I eat fine. You eat like a man who forgets meals. I can tell. The tailor stood back, assessing. But we make it work. Saturday, you will look like you belong next to Miss Hale. What if I don't want to belong next to Miss Hale? The tailor gave him a look that suggested this was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard. Every man in the city wants to belong next to Miss Hale. You're engaged to her. Stop complaining. Ethan caught his reflection in the mirror. The tux transformed him into someone he didn't quite recognize. Someone who could stand in a room full of millionaires and not immediately out himself as an imposter. It's just clothes, he muttered. Clothes are never just clothes, the tailor said. Clothes are armor. Saturday night, you go to war. This is your armor. I thought it was just a gala. Same thing. That evening, Victoria called. Not texted, actually called. How is the fitting? She asked without preamble. Weird. The tailor told me I don't eat enough. Do you? I eat when Sophie eats. That's not an answer. A pause. Claire mentioned you've been skipping the catered lunches she's been sending. I don't need catered lunches. I can make a sandwich. It's not about need, it's about... She stopped herself. Never mind. That's not why I called. Why did you call? Saturday. I wanted to prepare you. The guest list is extensive. A lot of people are going to want to meet you, ask questions. Some will be genuinely curious. Others will be looking for cracks in the story. What kind of questions? How we met. You know that part. When I knew you were the one. Make something up. Keep it vague but romantic. What your intentions are. Supporting me. Building a life together. Generic future talk. And they'll ask about Sophie. Ethan tensed. What about her? How she's adjusting. What kind of stepmother I'll be. If we're planning to have children together. Victoria's voice was carefully neutral. I need to know your boundaries. What's okay to discuss and what isn't. Sophie is off limits. Don't make promises about being her stepmother. Don't speculate about our future family. She's been through enough. Understood. Anything else? Yeah, if anyone asks about Vanessa, about the divorce, I'll shut it down, politely but firmly. Thank you. Silence settled between them. Ethan could hear something in the background on her end. Music, maybe. Something classical. Are you nervous? Victoria asked suddenly. About Saturday? Terrified. Me too. That surprised him. You? You do this stuff all the time. I attend events all the time. I've never brought someone before, never had to. Perform a relationship in front of people who know me. Her voice dropped. They're going to look for weaknesses, ways this doesn't make sense, and if they find them, then we deal with it together. That's the deal, right? Partners. Right, partners. She sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Victoria, why did you really agree to this? And don't give me the reputation answer. There's something else. For a long moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, my father is sick, cancer. He has maybe 6 months, and his dying wish is to see me settled, happy, not alone. Her voice cracked slightly. I can't give him real, but I can give him this. I can let him think, for whatever time he has left, that I'm going to be okay. Ethan closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be. He's not a good man. He built his empire by destroying smaller companies, crushing competitors, manipulating markets. But he's still my father, and he's dying. So if I can give him this one thing, this one lie that makes him happy. It's not entirely a lie, Ethan said quietly. You're not alone anymore. That part's true. For 3 months. For 3 months, he agreed. Another silence, heavier this time. I should go, and Victoria said. Early meeting tomorrow, but Ethan, Saturday night. Just be yourself. Don't try to be someone you think they want to see. The people who matter will see through it anyway. And the people who don't matter? Screw them. Ethan laughed, surprised. Did Victoria Hale just say, screw them? I contain multitudes. See you Saturday. She hung up before he could respond. Saturday arrived with the weight of an execution date. Ethan spent the morning with Sophie, making pancakes and pretending everything was normal. She was going to the gala too. Claire had arranged it, and was vibrating with excitement about wearing the dress Victoria had sent over. It was blue, age-appropriate, but clearly expensive, with layers that Sophie insisted on twirling in every 5 minutes. Do you think there will be fancy food? She asked for the 10th time. Probably. Like caviar? Maybe. I'm going to try it, even if it's gross. That's very brave of you. Will Victoria's dad be there? Claire said he might come. Ethan paused in flipping a pancake. Maybe. Why? Because if he's sick, I should be nice to him. That's what you do when people are sick. His daughter's casual compassion hit him square in the chest. Yeah, kiddo, that's exactly what you do. The car picked them up at 5. Sophie pressed her face to the window the entire drive, watching the city transform from their neighborhood to the glittering downtown where the gala was being held. The venue was a historic hotel that looked like it had been transplanted from a European capital. Red carpet leading to the entrance, actual photographers with actual cameras waiting for guests to arrive. Dad, Sophie whispered, suddenly nervous. There's cameras. I know. What do I do? Just walk, hold my hand, smile if you want to. You don't have to if you don't. Claire was waiting inside the entrance. She took one look at them and nodded approvingly. Perfect. Victoria's already here. She's been asking for you. They were led through corridors that smelled like old money and fresh flowers, into a ballroom that belonged in a movie. Crystal chandeliers, live orchestra, tables set with enough silverware to confuse royalty. Everywhere Ethan looked, people in clothes that cost more than his rent. And there, near the far side of the room, was Victoria. She wore a deep green dress that somehow made her look both powerful and elegant. Her hair was down for once, falling in dark waves over her shoulders. She was talking to an older couple, smiling that polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Then she saw them. The polite smile transformed into something real. Relief, maybe. Or just genuine happiness to see a familiar face in a room full of strangers. She excused herself and crossed to them, and Ethan was aware of every eye in the room tracking her movement. Hi, she said, and her voice was softer than usual. Hi yourself. Victoria crouched down to Sophie's level. You look beautiful. Blue is definitely your color. Sophie beamed. You look beautiful too, like a princess. Thank you. Are you ready for an adventure? What kind of adventure? The kind with fancy food, dancing, and a children's program that I'm told involves making terrariums. What's a terrarium? A tiny garden in glass? You'll love it. A woman in a staff uniform appeared to escort Sophie to the children's program. She went reluctantly, looking back at Ethan and Victoria every few steps. Once she was gone, Victoria turned to Ethan. You look good. The tux fits perfectly. Armor, apparently. What? The tailor called it armor, said I was going to war. Victoria's mouth quirked. He's not wrong. She took Ethan's arm, her touch light but deliberate. Stay close. Smile. And if anyone asks you something you don't want to answer, redirect to me. I'm very good at talking without saying anything. Comforting. They moved into the crowd. The next hour was a blur of introductions. Names Ethan forgot immediately, titles that meant nothing to him. Firm handshakes and assessing looks and questions that were polite on the surface but probing underneath. So, how did you two meet? What do you do, Ethan? This must be quite a change for you. Have you set a date? Victoria handled it like a professional, deflecting, redirecting, spinning a story that was close enough to true that it didn't feel like lying. Ethan mostly smiled and nodded and tried not to look as overwhelmed as he felt. Then Marcus Henley appeared. He looked different than he had at the restaurant, more polished, more controlled, but there was still that edge of cruelty in his smile. Victoria, and the fiancé. How domestic. Marcus, Victoria's voice was ice. I didn't realize you were on the guest list. My firm donated. I'm here representing them. His eyes slid to Ethan. So, still going through with this? Going through with what? Ethan asked. The engagement, the performance, whatever this is. It's a relationship, Victoria said flatly. Not that you'd recognize one. Ouch. Marcus's smile widened. I'm just saying, from the outside, it looks convenient. You get stood up, mystery man appears, suddenly you're engaged. It's almost like a story someone made up. Believe what you want, Ethan said. We're not here to convince you. No, you're here to convince everyone else. And you know what? They're buying it. For now. He leaned in slightly. But fairy tales don't last, especially ones built on lies. Victoria's hand tightened on Ethan's arm. We're done here. She steered them away before Marcus could respond. Once they were safely on the other side of the room, she exhaled sharply. I hate him. I got that impression. He's been trying to undermine me for years, spreading rumors, questioning my capabilities, acting like every success I have is because of my father's name and not my own work. Her jaw was tight. He's a parasite. Then why is he here? Because his firm donates enough money that the foundation can't afford to exclude him. Politics. She took a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and downed half of it in one go. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to deal with people like him. I married Vanessa. I'm used to people who smile while they sharpen knives. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in her expression. You're tougher than you look. I've had practice. The dinner bell rang. They found their table, front and center, of course, and settled in. The seats around them filled with people Ethan vaguely recognized from the earlier introductions. A tech CEO, a nonprofit director, a woman who owned half the city's real estate, and at the head of the table, in a wheelchair with an oxygen tank discreetly positioned beside him, was an older man who could only be Victoria's father. He looked like her. Same sharp eyes, same severe bone structure. But where Victoria held herself with careful control, her father radiated exhausted authority. A man used to being obeyed, now facing the one thing he couldn't command. Dad, Victoria said quietly, this is Ethan. The old man's eyes fixed on Ethan with laser focus. So you're the one. Ethan extended his hand. Mr. Hale, it's an honor. The handshake was surprisingly firm. We'll see about that. Sit. Dinner was served in courses that seemed designed to test how many forks one person could use. Ethan watched Victoria and copied her movements, hoping he wasn't making a complete fool of himself. Victoria's father didn't speak much, but when he did, everyone listened. He asked Ethan questions about his work, his daughter, his intentions, and Ethan answered as honestly as he could without revealing the truth. You know what you're getting into? The old man asked at one point, his voice rough. Being with her. It's not easy. She's brilliant, stubborn, doesn't trust easily. I'm aware. Good, because if you hurt her, if this is some scheme, Dad, Victoria interrupted, please. I'm dying, Victoria. I get to say what I want. He turned back to Ethan. You seem decent, but decent doesn't always mean strong enough. Strong enough for what? For the world she lives in, the pressure, the scrutiny, the people who will try to tear you apart just to see if they can. His eyes flickered to Marcus, sitting several tables away. Wolves. All of them. Then I guess I'll have to learn to bite back. That got the old man's attention. A slight smile crossed his face. Maybe you will. After dinner, the auction began. Items Ethan couldn't imagine buying. Vacation packages, artwork, a dinner with a celebrity chef. Victoria bid on a few things, casual amounts that made Ethan's head spin. Then they brought out a necklace. Vintage, the auctioneer explained. Early 20th century. Belonged to some actress whose name Ethan didn't catch. The bidding started at $50,000. Victoria's hand went up. 75. Someone across the room. 80. 90, Victoria said calmly. The bidding climbed. 100,000. 120. 150. Finally, at $175,000, Victoria won. Ethan leaned over. That's a lot for a necklace. It's not for me. Then who? The foundation. They'll auction it again next year. Use the money for programs. I'm just keeping it in circulation. She smiled slightly. Plus, Marcus was bidding against me. Worth every penny to watch him lose. The evening wound down. Sophie returned from the children's program with a terrarium she'd made. A small glass bowl with moss and tiny plants, and stories about the other kids she'd met. They were getting ready to leave when Victoria's father called them over. He looked exhausted, the evening clearly having taken its toll, but his eyes were clear when he looked at Victoria. You seem happy, he said. Happier than I've seen you in years. Victoria's composure cracked for just a second. Dad, I know you did this for me. Don't think I'm stupid. He glanced at Ethan. But maybe it's real anyway. Maybe you found something you weren't looking for. Maybe, Victoria said softly. The old man reached out and took her hand. Then don't waste it. Life's too short. Trust me. They left shortly after. Sophie fell asleep in the car on the way home, her terrarium clutched carefully in her lap. Your father knows, Ethan said quietly. He suspects. And he's okay with it? Victoria stared out the window. He wants me to be happy. If he thinks this makes me happy, even temporarily, that's enough for him. She was quiet for a moment. He has maybe 3 months left. The doctors said 6, but I can see it. He's fading faster than they predicted. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just don't disappear when he goes. The contract ends in 3 months anyway. But if he dies before that, I need you to stay. At least through the funeral. At least until the worst is over. It wasn't in the contract. It wasn't part of the deal. But looking at Victoria's face, the careful way she was holding herself together, Ethan couldn't say no. I'll stay, he said, as long as you need. Thank you. They dropped Sophie and Ethan off first. As Ethan carried his sleeping daughter up the stairs to their apartment, he looked back once. Victoria was watching from the car window, her face illuminated by the streetlight. She looked small, alone. Then the car pulled away, and she was gone. Inside, Ethan put Sophie to bed, terrarium safely on her nightstand. He sat in the dark living room, still wearing the tux, thinking about Marcus's words. Fairy tales don't last, he knew that. He'd learned it the hard way with Vanessa. But sitting in that ballroom, watching Victoria navigate her world with grace and steel, defending him to her father, trusting him with her truth, that hadn't felt like a fairy tale. It had felt like something else, something more dangerous. It had felt real. The weeks that followed the gala fell into a rhythm that felt almost normal, which was the most disturbing part. Ethan would work from home 3 days a week, picking Sophie up from school, making dinner, helping with homework. Then twice a week, he'd put on one of the new suits Claire had arranged and meet Victoria at some event, a gallery opening, a business dinner, a fundraiser for a cause he'd never heard of. They'd hold hands for the cameras, smile at the right moments, tell the sanitized version of their story to anyone who asked. And somewhere in the performance, the lines started to blur. It happened in small moments. Victoria remembering that Ethan took his coffee black with 1 sugar. Ethan noticing when Victoria was stressed by the way she'd twist the engagement ring on her finger. The comfortable silences that stretched between them in the car rides home when the performance was over but neither of them rushed to break character. Sophie accelerated it. She'd taken to calling Victoria on FaceTime at random hours, showing her drawings or asking questions about things Ethan had no idea how to answer. Victoria, if you could be any animal, what would you be? A wolf, probably. That's a good one. Dad said he'd be a penguin because they mate for life, but I think that's boring. Your dad said that? Victoria's voice carried something Ethan couldn't quite identify. Yeah, he's very mushy about love stuff. It's embarrassing. Ethan had grabbed the phone. Okay, that's enough sharing family secrets with the billionaire. She's not a billionaire, Dad. She's your fiancée. She can be both. Victoria's face on the screen had been smiling. Actually smiling. Not the polite version she wore for strangers. I don't mind the secrets. They're more interesting than quarterly reports. 2 weeks after the gala, Vanessa made her next move. Ethan was picking Sophie up from school when he saw her waiting by the gates. She wasn't supposed to be there. It was his week for pickup. But there she stood, arms crossed, face set in that expression that meant she'd made a decision and nothing was going to change her mind. "We need to talk," she said when he approached. "Can it wait?" "Sophie's about to come out." "It can't wait. And it's about Sophie, so she should hear this too." Dread settled in Ethan's stomach. "Vanessa, I've been offered a position, head architect for a firm in Seattle. It's everything I've been working towards, 6-figure salary, creative control, the whole package." "That's great, really. But what does that have to do with, I want to take Sophie with me?" The world tilted. "What?" "The schools there are better. The opportunities are better. And let's be honest, Ethan, you're barely holding it together here. Working part-time, playing house with someone you barely know. How is that stability for our daughter?" "I have full joint custody, which we can renegotiate. My lawyer says with the move and the opportunity, a judge would likely rule in my favor, especially given your recent lifestyle changes." Sophie burst through the school doors at that moment, backpack bouncing, completely oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in her life. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Vanessa's face transformed into a smile. "Surprise visit. I wanted to see my favorite girl." Sophie looked between them, her 7-year-old radar immediately picking up the tension. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Vanessa said quickly. "But I have some exciting news to share with you. How would you feel about moving to Seattle? It's beautiful there, and we'd have a bigger house. And I don't want to move," Sophie interrupted. "My school is here. My friends are here. Dad is here." "You'd still see Dad, just maybe not as often." Sophie's face crumpled. "No, I don't want to." Ethan found his voice. "We're not doing this now, not here. Sophie, go wait by the car." "But Dad, please, Soph." She went, dragging her feet, looking back every few steps. Once she was out of earshot, Ethan turned on Vanessa. "You can't just spring this on her, on me. We have an agreement." "Agreements can be modified. And honestly, Ethan, look at yourself. You're living some fantasy with a woman who's so far out of your league, it's embarrassing. What happens when she gets bored? When this whole thing falls apart?" Sophie doesn't need that kind of instability. You're the one trying to uproot her life. I'm trying to give her opportunities, a future. What are you giving her? Borrowed money and fake relationships? The words hit like a slap. Before Ethan could respond, his phone rang. Victoria. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Ethan, I'm outside the school. Claire mentioned it was pickup time and I was nearby, so I thought..." She paused. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar. I'm coming in." "Victoria, you don't have to..." But she'd already hung up. 30 seconds later, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Victoria stepped out, dressed in a business suit that probably cost more than Vanessa's car, and walked straight toward them. Vanessa's eyes widened. "You called her?" "I didn't. She just shows up sometimes." Victoria reached them, taking in the scene with sharp eyes. "Vanessa, I don't think we've been formally introduced." "I know who you are." "Good. Then you know I don't waste time." Victoria's voice was pleasant, but edged with steel. "I understand you're considering relocating. Congratulations on the job offer. Seattle's a beautiful city." Vanessa blinked, thrown off balance. "How did you..." "I make it my business to know things that affect my fiancé and his daughter." Victoria glanced at Sophie, who was watching from the car with wide eyes. "But I'm curious. Does this firm know you're planning to relocate a child against the wishes of her other parent? Because that tends to complicate things. Background checks, custody disputes, negative publicity. Firms don't love that." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm stating facts. You have a choice to make, Vanessa. Take the job, leave Sophie here with shared custody as currently arranged. Or push for full custody drag everyone through court, and watch that job offer evaporate when the firm realizes what they're hiring into. Victoria's smile was razor sharp. I'm sure you'll make the right decision. Vanessa's face went through several shades of red. This is none of your business. Actually, it became my business the moment Ethan put that ring on my finger. Sophie is part of his life, which makes her part of mine. And I protect what's mine. The possessiveness in Victoria's voice was so convincing that Ethan almost forgot it was an act. Vanessa looked between them, calculating odds, weighing options. Finally, she grabbed her purse. Fine, I'll take the job. Sophie stays here. But this isn't over, Ethan. When this all falls apart, and it will, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. She stormed off to her car and peeled out of the parking lot. Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Victoria's voice had lost its sharp edge. Is Sophie okay? They looked over at the car. Sophie had her face pressed against the window, clearly trying to read lips. She will be, eventually. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Thank you for showing up for the whatever that was. That was me making sure Vanessa understands the stakes. She won't push for custody now. The risk is too high. Victoria hesitated. I meant what I said, though, about protecting what's mine. Or what's ours, I guess. For the next few months, anyway. Something in her tone made Ethan look at her more closely. Are you okay? Dad's in the hospital again. Nothing critical, just monitoring, but it's getting worse. She glanced away. I should go. Tell Sophie I said hi. Wait. Ethan caught her arm. Do you want to have dinner with us? Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and whatever vegetable I can convince Sophie to eat. But if you don't want to be alone, I shouldn't. I have work. Victoria. She met his eyes, and for just a second, the mask slipped. She looked exhausted, scared. Okay, she said quietly. Spaghetti sounds good. Sophie was thrilled to have Victoria at their tiny apartment, though she spent the first 10 minutes apologizing for how small everything was. We used to have a bigger place, but Dad lost it in the divorce. Mom says he made bad investments. Did you make bad investments, Dad? Sophie. What? It's true. Victoria, to her credit, didn't look uncomfortable. She sat at their rickety kitchen table like she belonged there, watching Ethan boil pasta and Sophie set out mismatched plates. Everyone makes mistakes, Victoria said. The important thing is what you do after. Dad does dishes. A lot of dishes. I've heard that's a tell. Ethan pointed the pasta spoon at them. You two are not allowed to team up against me. Too late, Sophie said cheerfully. We're a team now. Dinner was chaotic in the way meals with a 7-year-old always were. Sophie talked nonstop about school, her upcoming recital, a classmate who claimed to have seen a real dragon. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions, engaging in a way that felt natural rather than forced. After Sophie went to bed, after making Victoria promise to come to her recital, which Victoria did without hesitation, Ethan and Victoria sat in the living room with cheap wine and comfortable silence. Your apartment is nice, Victoria said. You're a terrible liar. Okay, it's small and the heater makes concerning noises, but it feels like a home. That's more than I can say for my place. The penthouse with the $1 million view? The penthouse with nothing personal in it. No photos, no clutter, no evidence that anyone actually lives there. She took a sip of wine. I bought it 5 years ago and I've never bothered to make it mine. It's just a place I sleep. Why? Victoria was quiet for a long time. Because if it's not really mine, I can't lose it. If I don't get attached, it can't hurt me when it's gone. Ethan understood that logic. He'd lived it for the past year, keeping everyone at arm's length, maintaining careful distance. That sounds lonely, he said. It is. She looked at him. But so is your version. The dishes, the deflection, the pretending you're fine when you're falling apart. I'm not falling apart. Ethan, you're engaged to a stranger because you couldn't stand to watch someone else get humiliated. You're working a job you're overqualified for because you're too scared to take risks again. You're living in an apartment you hate because you think you don't deserve better. Her voice was gentle but relentless. That's falling apart. You're just doing it very, very quietly. The words landed like stones, heavy and true. Why are you telling me this? Because we're the same, you and me. Different packaging, same damage. Victoria set down her wine glass. And maybe if we're going to lie to everyone else for the next few months, we should at least be honest with each other. Honest about what? About the fact that this is working. Not the engagement, that's still fake, but the partnership, the having someone who understands, the not being alone. She met his eyes. I don't want to go back to before. Do you? Ethan thought about the past few weeks, the strange comfort of having someone to call when things went wrong, the way Victoria had stepped in with Vanessa without being asked, the feeling of being part of something, even if that something was built on a lie. No, he admitted. I don't want to go back either. So what do we do? I have no idea. Victoria laughed, tired and real. At least we're honest about that. She left an hour later, and Ethan stood at the window watching her car disappear into the night. His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Mr. Hale has requested dinner with you tomorrow. Private. Just the two of you. Car will pick you up at 6 p.m. Ethan stared at the message, anxiety spiking. Victoria's father wanted to see him alone. That couldn't be good. The car arrived exactly at 6 the next evening. Ethan had spent the day anxious, distracted, messing up a simple database update at work. Sophie was at Vanessa's for the night, something they'd arranged before the Seattle bomb dropped, so at least he didn't have to explain where he was going. The driver took him to a private club that looked like it predated electricity. Old wood, older money, the kind of place where everyone spoke in hushed tones and deals were made over cigars. Victoria's father was waiting in a private dining room, the oxygen tank beside him, a stark reminder of his mortality. He looked worse than he had at the gala, grayer, thinner, like he was slowly being erased. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Ethan sat. You're probably wondering why I asked you here. The thought crossed my mind. The old man smiled faintly. I like you, Ethan. You're direct. No bullshit. That's rare in my world. He paused to catch his breath. I'm dying. We both know it. The doctors give me weeks now, not months. So I'm going to cut to the chase. Okay? I know this engagement is fake. Ethan's stomach dropped. Sir, don't insult me by denying it. I've been playing games longer than you've been alive. I can spot a performance. He held up a hand to forestall Ethan's response. But here's the thing. I don't care. You don't care? My daughter has spent her entire life building walls, protecting herself, refusing to let anyone in because she watched what happened to her mother, my late wife, when she made herself vulnerable. Victoria learned young that love is a liability, that caring is weakness. His eyes were sharp despite the exhaustion. But you got past those walls. Fake engagement or not, you're the first person in years she's let close. I don't think... She calls you when she's stressed. Did you know that? Her assistant told me Victoria never calls anyone when she's stressed. She handles it alone. But she calls you. He leaned forward slightly. And yesterday, when Vanessa tried to take your daughter, Victoria didn't hesitate. She went to war for you. For Sophie. That's not fake, Ethan. That's real. Ethan didn't know what to say. So here's what I'm asking you. When I'm gone, when the contract ends, when you're both free to walk away, don't. Not unless you're absolutely sure there's nothing worth staying for. The old man's voice roughened. I'm dying without knowing if my daughter will be okay. If she'll spend the rest of her life alone in that penthouse, protecting herself from a world that's never going to hurt her the way she thinks it will. But if you stay, if you give this a real chance, maybe she won't have to. You're asking me to turn a fake engagement into a real one. I'm asking you not to let the best thing that's happened to either of you disappear because you're both too scared to admit you want it. Ethan sat back, mind reeling. What if we try and it doesn't work? What if we're too different, too damaged? Then at least you tried. At least she knows what it feels like to let someone in. The old man smiled sadly. That's more than I've given her in 30 years. They ate dinner after that, or tried to. The old man mostly pushed food around his plate, exhausting himself with the effort of conversation. But he asked Ethan about Sophie, about his work, about his life before the restaurant. Victoria told me about your ex, about what happened. She investigated me pretty thoroughly. She investigates everyone. It's how she protects herself. He took a labored breath. But you know what she found that made her say yes to this whole arrangement? Your daughter's school records. Sophie's grades dropped after the divorce, then slowly climbed back up. Her teacher's notes said you were at every parent conference, every event, fighting to keep her stable, fighting to be enough. He met Ethan's eyes. Victoria respects fighters. She doesn't trust many things, but she trusts effort, persistence, people who don't quit even when they should. I quit plenty of things. But not your daughter, and not apparently my daughter either. The old man smiled. You could have walked away after the restaurant, could have said it was too crazy, too complicated. But you didn't. You stayed. I gave my word. You gave more than that. You gave her hope that someone might stay for her instead of what she can provide. The evening ended with a handshake that felt like a blessing and a burden all at once. The old man's grip was weak, but his eyes were fierce. Take care of her, he said. Please. I will, for as long as she'll let me. Then I can die happy. Ethan left the club feeling like he'd just made a promise he had no idea how to keep. The call came 4 days later at 3 a.m. Ethan jerked awake to his phone buzzing insistently, Victoria's name on the screen. Hello? He's gone. Her voice was hollow. My father. He died an hour ago. Ethan was already getting out of bed. Where are you? The hospital. They're asking about arrangements, about notifications. I can't. I'm coming. Don't move. Don't do anything. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He called his neighbor, a retired teacher who'd offered to help with Sophie any time, and was in a cab within 5 minutes. The hospital was cold and sterile, all fluorescent lights and the smell of disinfectant. Victoria was in a private waiting room, still in the clothes she'd been wearing the day before. Her eyes were dry but empty, like she'd gone somewhere far away and left her body behind. Ethan sat down next to her and didn't say anything, just sat. After a long moment, Victoria spoke. I was holding his hand. He just stopped breathing. It was quiet, peaceful, I guess, but it felt wrong, like there should have been more. More time, more words, more something. There's never enough time. No. She looked at him. He asked about you. In the end, wanted to know if you'd stay. I told him you would. I will. The contract, screw the contract, Victoria. Your father just died. I'm not going anywhere. Something broke in her expression. Not tears, not yet. Just a crack in the armor she'd been wearing for so long it had become part of her. I don't know what to do, she whispered. There are so many decisions. The funeral, the company. The board is going to push for changes. Marcus is already circling like a vulture, and I can't think. I can't breathe. Ethan took her hand. Then don't. Not tonight. Tonight you just sit here. I'll handle the rest. You can't watch me. He spent the next 3 hours dealing with hospital administrators, funeral directors, Victoria's assistant who appeared with a tablet full of urgent decisions. Ethan fielded what he could, deferred what he couldn't, and made sure Victoria didn't have to face any of it alone. As dawn broke through the waiting room windows, Victoria finally cried. Quiet. Devastating sobs that shook her whole body. Ethan held her and said nothing because there was nothing to say that would make it better. When she finally pulled away, her face was blotchy and her makeup was ruined and she looked more human than he'd ever seen her. Thank you, she said, for being here, for not leaving. Where else would I be? Most people would run from this, from me. I'm not most people. No, you're really not. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. The funeral is going to be huge. Everyone who ever did business with my father will be there. The press will be everywhere. Are you ready for that? Are you? No, but I don't have a choice. Then we'll get through it together. That's the deal, remember? Partners. Victoria nodded, exhausted. Partners. They left the hospital as the sun was fully up, stepping into a world that had kept turning despite everything. Photographers were already gathering outside. Someone had leaked the news, and cameras flashed as they emerged. Victoria's hand found Ethan's, gripping tight. To the cameras, it probably looked like a couple in mourning, leaning on each other. And maybe that's exactly what it was. The line between performance and reality had blurred so much that Ethan couldn't tell the difference anymore. The funeral was exactly as massive as Victoria predicted. Hundreds of people in black, paying respects to a man most of them had feared or resented. The service was held at a cathedral that looked like it could hold a small country, and the eulogies were full of carefully worded praise that meant nothing. Victoria gave a speech that was perfect, poised, grateful, appropriately emotional, but controlled. She thanked everyone for coming. She talked about her father's legacy. She said all the right things, but Ethan, standing in the front row with Sophie beside him, his daughter had insisted on coming, on being there for Victoria, could see the cost, could see how much energy it took for Victoria to stand up there and perform grief for an audience. After the service, the reception. More people, more condolences, more performance. Marcus Henley showed up, offering sympathies that felt like threats. "Terrible loss," he said to Victoria. "I'm sure the transition will be difficult. If you need any guidance with the board, I won't," Victoria said flatly, "but thank you for the offer. Just remember, the company needs strong leadership. Your father's vision can't be executed by sentiment alone." "Is that a challenge, Marcus?" "It's a reality check. The board meets next week. Be ready." He walked away, and Victoria's jaw was so tight Ethan thought she might crack a tooth. "He's going to make a play for control," she said quietly. "Try to convince the board I'm too emotional, too young, too female to run the company. Can he do that?" "He can try, and if he gets enough votes—" She didn't finish the sentence. Sophie, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet all day, tugged on Victoria's sleeve. "Are you okay?" Victoria crouched down to Sophie's level. "I'm sad, but I'll be okay." "Dad says it's okay to be sad. He was sad a lot after Mom left. He tried to hide it, but I knew." Sophie wrapped her arms around Victoria's neck. "You don't have to hide it with us." Victoria hugged her back, and Ethan saw her eyes close, saw her take a shaky breath. "Thank you, Sophie." The rest of the reception passed in a blur. By the time the last guests left, Victoria looked like she might collapse. "Come home with us," Ethan said. "I should go to the penthouse. Start dealing with Victoria. Come home." She didn't argue. They ended up at Ethan's apartment again, the three of them. Sophie fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from the emotional weight of the day. Ethan covered her with a blanket and found Victoria standing at the window, staring out at the city. "He was right, you know," she said quietly. "My father. When he said I build walls, I do. I have been since I was 16, and I watched my mother waste away trying to be enough for a man who never saw her. I promised myself I'd never be that vulnerable, never need anyone that much." "There's a difference between need and want, is there?" She turned to face him. "Because I think I need you, Ethan, and that terrifies me." The confession hung between them, raw and real. "I'm scared too," Ethan admitted, "of getting this wrong, of hurting Sophie, of losing myself in someone else's world again, but I'm more scared of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. The contract ends in 6 weeks. I know. We could just let it end. Part as friends. You go back to your life, I go back to mine." "We could," Ethan agreed. "Is that what you want?" Victoria crossed the room to stand in front of him, close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the vulnerability she was trying so hard to hide. "No," she whispered. "I want to be terrified together. I want to mess this up and figure it out, and maybe, possibly, find something real in all this fake." Ethan reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so natural he didn't even think about it. "Then let's be terrified together." She kissed him. Not for cameras, not for show, just for them. It was gentle and desperate and tasted like grief and hope all mixed together. When they pulled apart, Victoria's eyes were wet again. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "The real version. I've spent so long pretending I don't know what's real anymore." "Then we figure it out, one day at a time. No contract, no performance. Just us." "Just us," she repeated, like she was trying to believe it. They stood there in Ethan's tiny living room, with Sophie asleep on the couch and the city humming outside, and made a silent agreement to try. to take the lie they'd been living and see if there was any truth underneath. It wouldn't be easy. Victoria still had a company to run and a board to fight. Ethan still had an ex-wife looking for ammunition and a daughter to protect. They still came from different worlds with different expectations. But for the first time since that night in the restaurant, neither of them felt alone. And maybe that was enough to start with. The kiss changed everything and nothing all at once. Victoria left before Sophie woke up, slipping out into the early morning with a promise to call later. Ethan watched her go and felt the weight of what they'd just done settle over him like a blanket, warm and suffocating in equal measure. Sophie emerged from her blanket cocoon around 8, hair sticking up in every direction. Where's Victoria? She had to go home, get some sleep. Is she sad? Yeah, kiddo, she's very sad. Sophie climbed onto the couch next to him, pressing against his side. You like her, like for real like her, not just pretend. There was no point in lying to a 7-year-old who could read him better than anyone. Yeah, I do. Good, because she likes you too, I can tell. Sophie yawned. Are you going to stop being fake engaged and be real engaged? It's complicated. That's what you always say when you don't know the answer. You're too smart for your own good. I know. But she was quiet for a moment. Dad, what if Mom tries to take me to Seattle again? Ethan pulled her closer. She won't. Victoria made sure of that. But what if she does? What if Victoria can't stop her next time? Then I'll fight. As hard as I have to. You're not going anywhere unless you want to. I don't want to. I want to stay here with you. And with Victoria, if she's going to be around. I think she will be. Promise? Ethan thought about Victoria's face when she'd said she needed him. About the kiss that had felt like falling and flying at the same time. About the terrifying possibility that this might actually work. I promise to try my hardest. Sophie seemed satisfied with that answer. They spent the rest of the morning in pajamas, making pancakes and watching cartoons, pretending the world outside didn't exist. But the world had other plans. Ethan's phone started ringing around noon. His sister first, demanding details about the funeral and what's really going on with you and that woman. Then his mother, gentler but equally curious. Then, unexpectedly, his old business partner, David. Ethan, long time. The sound of David's voice made Ethan's chest tighten. This was the man who'd slept with Vanessa, who'd helped destroy Ethan's company and his marriage in one devastating blow. What do you want, David? I saw the news about you and Victoria Hale. That's quite a development. Is there a point to this call? I wanted to apologize for what happened, for Vanessa, for the company, for all of it. David's voice sounded sincere, but Ethan had learned not to trust sincerity from this man. And to warn you. Warn me about what? Vanessa's not done. She's talking to lawyers about the Seattle move, digging up anything she can use against you. And she's been asking questions about Victoria, about the engagement, whether it's real. Ethan's blood went cold. How do you know this? We still talk, occasionally. She thinks she can use your unstable relationship choices to prove you're unfit for equal custody. A pause. I told her she was being vindictive and stupid for what it's worth, but she's not listening to me. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe you. Because what I did was unforgivable and I can't fix it, but I can at least give you a heads up when she's coming for you. David sighed. I'm sorry, man, for everything. I know that doesn't mean much, but it's true. The call ended before Ethan could respond. He sat there, staring at his phone, feeling the past and present collide in ways he wasn't prepared for. When Victoria called an hour later, he told her everything. She's building a case, Victoria said, her voice tight. Trying to prove the engagement is fake so she can claim you're lying to the court, demonstrating poor judgment. Can she do that? She can try, but she'd need proof. And as far as anyone knows, we're a real couple. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Ethan, what happened last night? The kiss. We need to talk about what that means. I know. Because if we're going to make this real, actually real, we need to be on the same page. No more contracts. No more exit strategies. We're either in this or we're not. Ethan thought about his conversation with Sophie, about the promise he'd made to try his hardest. I'm in, he said. If you are. I'm terrified. Me too. But I'm in. He could hear the smile in her voice. We're really doing this, actually dating, like normal people. We're definitely not normal people. Fair point, like abnormal people attempting to date normally. That sounds about right. They talked for another hour, making plans to tell Sophie officially, to start being seen together, not as an arrangement, but as an actual couple. It felt surreal and right in equal measure. The board meeting happened 3 days later. Ethan wasn't supposed to be there. It was company business, executive level only. But Victoria had asked him to come anyway. I need someone in my corner, she'd said. Someone who isn't trying to take something from me. The boardroom was exactly what Ethan expected. Long table, leather chairs, walls lined with photos of the company's history. 12 board members, most of them men over 50, all of them looking at Victoria like she was an interesting problem to solve. Marcus Henley sat at the far end, perfectly positioned to challenge Victoria's authority. Let's begin, Victoria said, taking her seat at the head of the table. Ethan sat against the wall, observer status only. I know you all have concerns about leadership transition. I'm here to address them. One of the older board members, Gerald something, cleared his throat. With all due respect, Victoria, your father had 50 years of experience. You've been with the company for 8 years, most of it in advisory roles. The board feels we need stability during this transition. What you mean is you don't trust me to lead. That's not what I said, but it's what you meant. Victoria's voice was calm but edged with steel. Let me be clear, I've been preparing for this role my entire life. I have an MBA from Stanford, a decade of experience in corporate strategy, and I know this company better than anyone in this room. If your concern is stability, I am your best option. Marcus leaned forward. Or we could bring in outside leadership. Someone with experience running a company this size. You could stay on as an advisor, of course. You want to replace me with someone you can control. I want what's best for the company. What's best for the company is continuity. My father built this from the ground up. I'm not going to watch you tear it apart because you don't think a woman can run it. The room went silent. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Gerald tried to smooth things over. Victoria, no one is questioning your capabilities based on gender. Aren't you? Because I've sat in enough rooms like this to know how this works. If I was my father's son instead of his daughter, we wouldn't be having this conversation. She stood up, commanding the room. I'm going to make this simple. I'm taking over as CEO. If anyone wants to challenge that, bring it to a vote. But know that I have controlling shares and the legal right to this position. You can make this easy or you can make it difficult, but the outcome will be the same. Marcus smiled thinly. Controlling shares that could be contested if your personal life is deemed unstable. Your father's will has provisions. Don't! Victoria's voice could have cut glass. Don't you dare weaponize my father's death against me. I'm simply stating facts. The will stipulates that if the primary heir is deemed unfit due to scandal, instability, or compromised judgment, the board can petition for alternative leadership. Marcus looked directly at Ethan. And your whirlwind engagement to a man you barely know could certainly be seen as compromised judgment. Ethan felt his hands clench. He started to stand, but Victoria caught his eye and shook her head slightly. My personal life is none of your concern, she said, and my engagement is not evidence of instability. It's evidence that I'm capable of building a life beyond this company. Something you might try, Marcus, instead of scheming for a position you'll never be qualified for. We'll see about that. I'm calling for a vote. All those in favor of bringing in external leadership, there won't be a vote. A new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A woman in her 60s stood there, impeccably dressed, carrying herself with the kind of authority that made the entire room straighten. Margaret? Victoria's eyes widened. What are you doing here? Saving you from making this harder than it needs to be. Margaret Chen, Ethan realized, he'd read about her. One of the most powerful venture capitalists in the country and Victoria's godmother. I hold 20% of the company's shares through the Chen Foundation, shares your father transferred to me 5 years ago specifically to prevent this kind of coup attempt. Marcus's face went pale. We weren't informed. Because it wasn't your business, but now it is. Margaret walked to the table, placing a folder in front of Victoria. These are the voting proxies. Combined with Victoria's controlling shares and my 20%, she has more than enough to shut down any challenge. So let me make this clear to everyone in this room. Victoria Hale is the CEO. If you can't work with that, resign. Otherwise, fall in line. The room was dead silent. Gerald was the first to speak. I think we can all agree that Victoria is the right choice for leadership. Murmurs of agreement around the table. Marcus sat frozen, his power play demolished in less than 2 minutes. Good, Margaret said. Then this meeting is adjourned. Victoria, my office. Now. She left without waiting for a response. Victoria grabbed her things and followed, pausing only to squeeze Ethan's hand as she passed. Ethan waited in the hallway while Victoria met with her godmother. Through the glass walls, he could see them talking, Margaret animated, Victoria nodding, occasionally smiling. When Victoria finally emerged 20 minutes later, she looked exhausted but relieved. She's terrifying, Victoria said. She just saved your entire company. She's been watching, waiting to see if I'd handle it myself. When Marcus made his move, she decided to step in. Victoria leaned against the wall. She also lectured me for 30 minutes about letting fear control my decisions, about pushing away everyone who tries to care about me. Sounds like a fun conversation. She asked about you, about us, whether it's real. Ethan's stomach tightened. What did you tell her? The truth, that it started fake and became real, that I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying anyway. Victoria met his eyes. She said my father would have liked that answer. What do you think? I think she's right, and I think we need to stop hiding. Victoria took his hand. I want to go public, not as a fake engagement, but as a real relationship. I want people to know that I chose you, that this isn't strategy or performance. It's real. What about the contract, the arrangement? We tear it up, start over. No terms, no exit clause. Just two people figuring it out as they go. Ethan pulled her closer. Sophie's recital is in 2 days. Come with me, not as my fake fiancée, as my actual girlfriend who happens to be attending a 7-year-old's ballet performance. I already promised I'd be there, with flowers, the big kind. I remember. They stood in the hallway of Victoria's office building, holding hands like teenagers, while employees walked past pretending not to stare. This is really happening, Victoria said softly. Yeah, it really is. I'm still terrified. Good. Me too. Let's be terrified together. Sophie's ballet recital was held in a community center that smelled like old wood and desperation. The stage was small, the curtains were faded, and the sound system crackled ominously. It was perfect. Ethan sat in the 3rd row, Victoria beside him, holding the enormous bouquet of flowers she'd insisted on bringing. Around them, other parents with cameras and nervous smiles, all of them there to watch their children perform a routine they'd been practicing for months. Vanessa was on the other side of the auditorium, sitting with her sister. She'd seen Ethan and Victoria walk in together, and her expression had gone through several complicated emotions before settling on cold disapproval. She's staring, Victoria murmured. Let her stare. This is going to make things harder with the custody situation. We'll deal with it. Ethan squeezed her hand. Today is about Sophie. Everything else can wait. The lights dimmed, the music started, something classical that Ethan didn't recognize. And then the children came on stage, a line of 7-year-olds in tutus, all of them trying very hard to remember the choreography. Sophie was in the middle, her face set in intense concentration. She'd been nervous all week, convinced she'd forget the steps or fall or somehow embarrass herself. But she didn't. She moved through this routine with surprising grace, her face breaking into a huge smile when she nailed a particularly tricky turn. Victoria leaned over. She's really good. She gets it from Vanessa. I have no coordination whatsoever. I find that hard to believe. Ask me to dance sometime. You'll see. The performance ended to enthusiastic applause. The children took their bows, beaming with pride and relief that it was over. Backstage, Sophie ran straight to Ethan and launched herself into his arms. Did you see? Did you see me do the turn? You were perfect, kiddo, absolutely perfect. I was so scared I'd mess up, but I didn't. She spotted Victoria and gasped. You came, you really came. Victoria held out the flowers. I promised, didn't I? Sophie took the bouquet, which was nearly as big as she was, and hugged Victoria around the waist. These are the best flowers ever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're very welcome. You were wonderful up there. Really? You're not just saying that? I'm not just saying that. You have real talent. Sophie glowed. Then her face fell slightly as she spotted Vanessa approaching. Sophie, you did great, Vanessa said, her voice warm when she addressed their daughter, cold when she looked at Ethan and Victoria. Can I talk to you both? Privately? Ethan looked at Victoria, who nodded. They followed Vanessa to a quiet corner while Sophie stayed with Ethan's neighbor, who'd come to watch. I'm not going to fight the custody arrangement, Vanessa said without preamble. I'm taking the Seattle job, but Sophie stays here. Ethan blinked. What changed your mind? Honestly, watching you two today, seeing how Sophie lit up when she saw Victoria, how comfortable she is with both of you. Vanessa's jaw was tight. I wanted to believe this was fake, that you were making a mistake. But it's not fake, is it? No, Victoria said quietly. It's not. Sophie deserves stability, a home where she's not being used as leverage. Vanessa looked at Ethan. You've built that for her. I can't compete with that, and I'm tired of trying. You're her mother. You don't have to compete. Maybe not, but I do have to accept that her home is here, with you. Vanessa's eyes flickered to Victoria. Take care of them, both of them. I will. Vanessa left without another word. Ethan stood there, processing what had just happened. Did she just give up? He asked. I think she just chose her daughter's happiness over her pride, Victoria said. That's not giving up. That's being a parent. They collected Sophie, who was showing off her flowers to anyone who would look, and headed out to the parking lot. The night was cool, stars visible above the city lights. Can we get ice cream? Sophie asked. To celebrate? Absolutely, Ethan said. Can Victoria come? If she wants to. Victoria smiled. I would love to get ice cream. They ended up at a diner that served sundaes in bowls the size of Sophie's head. She ordered one with extra chocolate sauce and proceeded to tell Victoria every detail of the performance, including all the parts that went wrong that the audience hadn't noticed. Ethan watched them together, his daughter animated and happy. Victoria listening with genuine interest, and felt something settle in his chest. Not the anxious fear he'd been carrying for months. Something else. Something that felt dangerously close to contentment. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow. 2 p.m. Come alone. Marcus. Ethan's stomach dropped. He showed the message to Victoria. Her expression darkened. Don't go. I have to. If he's planning something, then let him plan. You don't owe him a meeting. But if I don't show up, he'll take it as weakness, as fear. Ethan met her eyes. I'm tired of being afraid of people like him. Let me handle this. Victoria looked like she wanted to argue. Then she sighed. Fine, but I'm having security nearby, and you're wearing a wire. A wire? This isn't a spy movie. Humor me. If Marcus is planning something, I want evidence. The next day, Ethan arrived at Riverside Park at exactly 2 p.m. Feeling ridiculous about the tiny recording device Claire had taped to his chest that morning, Marcus was waiting on a bench overlooking the river, looking relaxed and confident. Ethan, thanks for coming. What do you want, Marcus? Straight to the point. I like that. Marcus gestured to the bench. Sit. This won't take long. Ethan remained standing. I'm fine here. Suit yourself. Marcus leaned back, studying him. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like you. I don't like what you represent. A nobody who stumbled into something he doesn't understand and refuses to let go. Is there a point to this? The point is that Victoria is making mistakes, bad ones, and you're the biggest mistake of all. Marcus's smile was cold. But she won't listen to reason, so I'm offering you a deal. I'm not interested in $5 million, cash, deposited in an account of your choosing, All you have to do is walk away. End the engagement. Disappear from her life. Ethan stared at him. You're trying to bribe me. I'm offering you a solution. You get financial security. Sophie gets the life you can't provide on your own. And Victoria gets to focus on running the company without the distraction of a relationship that's clearly out of her league. You really think I'd take your money and abandon her? I think you're a pragmatist. I think you know this doesn't last. She's a billionaire. You're an IT guy living in a 2-bedroom apartment. Eventually, she'll realize she can do better, so why not get paid for the inevitable? Ethan felt anger rising in his chest, hot and sharp. You want to know what I think, Marcus? I think you're terrified. Not of me specifically, but of what I represent. Someone who values Victoria for who she is, not what she can do for them. And that threatens you because you've spent years trying to make her believe she's only worth what she can provide. Marcus's smile faded. Careful. Or what? You'll threaten me? Ruin me? Go ahead and try. I've already lost everything once. I survived, and I'll survive whatever you throw at me. Ethan stepped closer. But here's what you need to understand. I'm not leaving. I'm not taking your money, and I'm going to be there, right beside Victoria, when she crushes every pathetic power grab you attempt. So take your $5 million and shove it. He turned to walk away. You're making a mistake, Marcus called after him. Probably, but it's my mistake to make. Ethan didn't look back. When he met Victoria at her office an hour later, she was grinning. Claire sent me the recording. That was beautiful. I probably should have taken the high road. Screw the high road. You told him exactly what he needed to hear. Victoria pulled him into her office and closed the door. And you just gave me everything I need to have him removed from the board. What? How? Attempting to bribe someone to break off an engagement is grounds for immediate dismissal. It shows compromised judgment and actively working against the company's interests. She kissed him, quick and fierce. You just saved my company. Again. I was just defending my girlfriend. Your girlfriend who happens to run a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Minor detail. They stood in her office, wrapped in each other, and Ethan realized that somewhere along the way, the terrifying had become comfortable. The impossible had become their normal. His phone rang. His sister. I should probably take this. She's been calling all week. Go ahead. I have to deal with legal anyway. Getting Marcus removed before the next board meeting. Ethan answered the call. Hey, Jenna. Finally, do you know how many times I've called? I was starting to think you joined a cult or something. Sorry, it's been crazy. I can imagine. Dating a billionaire will do that. Her voice softened. But seriously, Ethan, are you happy? Like actually happy? Ethan looked at Victoria, who was on her own phone pacing and gesturing while she talked to her lawyers. Her hair was falling out of its careful style. Her jacket was thrown over a chair. She looked fierce and beautiful, and completely herself. Yeah, he said. I really am. Good. Because you deserve it. After everything with Vanessa, after the company, after all of it, you deserve something good. Thanks, Jenna. Now when do I get to meet her? Mom's driving me crazy asking questions. Soon, I promise. After he hung up, Victoria finished her call and collapsed onto the couch in her office. Marcus is officially out. The board voted unanimously once they heard the recording. He's being escorted from the building as we speak. How do you feel? Relieved, exhausted, vindicated. She looked up at him. Grateful. For you. For not taking the money. For fighting for us. Ethan sat down beside her. It wasn't even a choice. There's no amount of money worth losing what we have. What do we have exactly? We never really defined it. I don't know. A relationship that started with a lie and turned into something true. A partnership. A chance at something neither of us thought we'd find. Victoria leaned against him. That's terrifyingly vague and somehow perfect. We're good at terrifying. We really are. They sat in silence for a while, the city spreading out below them through the office windows. Somewhere out there, Marcus was packing his things. Vanessa was planning her move to Seattle. Sophie was probably doing her homework or building something elaborate that would take hours to clean up. And here, in this moment, Ethan and Victoria were just two people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and decided to stay anyway. The contract is gone, Victoria said quietly. Officially destroyed. Claire shredded it this morning. How do you feel about that? Terrified. Free. Both at once. She turned to look at him. We should probably go on an actual date, one that isn't a gala or a performance, something normal. Like what? I have no idea. What do normal couples do? Dinner and a movie? That sounds perfect and terrifying, which seems to be our theme. Ethan kissed her forehead. Tomorrow night. I'll pick the place. You pick the movie. Deal. As they left the office together, hand in hand, Ethan caught their reflection in the elevator doors. They looked like they belonged together, like this had been the plan all along instead of an accident that turned into something real. The doors opened. They stepped out into the world, ready to face whatever came next. Together. The normal date turned out to be harder than either of them expected. Ethan picked a small Italian restaurant in his neighborhood, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. No photographers, no performance, just them. Victoria showed up in jeans and a sweater, her hair down, looking more nervous than she'd been facing down the entire board of directors. I don't know how to do this, she admitted as they sat down. The casual thing. Every relationship I've ever had has been strategic, beneficial. This is terrifying? I was going to say unprecedented, but terrifying works too. The waiter came by, an older man who didn't seem to recognize Victoria at all, which was somehow perfect. They ordered wine and pasta and tried to have a conversation that wasn't about contracts or custody battles or corporate coups. Tell me something I don't know about you, Ethan said. Like what? Anything. Something real. Not the stuff that's in your official bio. Victoria thought about it, twisting her wine glass. I wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. I loved literature, history, the idea of helping kids understand the world. But my father said it was impractical, that I had responsibilities to the family business. So I got my MBA instead and never looked back. Do you regret it? Sometimes. When I'm sitting in board meetings listening to men argue about profit margins, I wonder what my life would have looked like if I'd been brave enough to choose what I wanted instead of what was expected. It's not too late. You could still teach, part-time, maybe, or fund education programs through the company. Victoria smiled. That's what I like about you. You make impossible things sound reasonable. Your turn. Ask me something. Okay. What happened with your business? The one you lost in the divorce? I know the facts, but I want to hear it from you. Ethan set down his fork. He'd been avoiding this conversation, but she deserved the truth. David and I started a software company right out of college, custom database solutions for medical facilities. It was small but growing. We were good at what we did. He took a breath. Vanessa worked as our office manager at first. That's how we met. She was smart, organized, beautiful. I fell hard. We got married after a year, had Sophie 2 years later. Everything seemed perfect. But it wasn't. No, I was working constantly, trying to grow the company. Vanessa felt neglected. I didn't see it until it was too late. She and David started spending more time together, planning, strategizing. Or so I thought. He laughed bitterly. Turns out they were planning, just not about the company. By the time I found out about the affair, they'd already repositioned things so that when I confronted them, I was the one who lost everything. David kept the company. He had controlling shares that I hadn't paid attention to. Vanessa filed for divorce and went after custody. I ended up with nothing but Sophie and enough debt to drown in. I'm sorry, that's devastating? Yeah, it was. For a long time, I thought it meant I was stupid, that I'd missed all the signs because I was too trusting, too naive. That's not stupid. That's human. Maybe. But it made me afraid to trust anyone again, to let anyone close. He met her eyes. Until a fake engagement forced me to. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. I'm glad it did. Force you, I mean. Because I don't think either of us would have chosen this if we'd had time to think about it rationally. Definitely not. But here we are anyway. Here we are. They finished dinner and went to a movie, Some action thing that neither of them paid much attention to because they were too busy whispering commentary to each other and stealing kisses in the dark. It was normal and perfect and absolutely terrifying in the way new things always are. Afterward, walking back to Ethan's car, Victoria stopped suddenly. "I want you to meet my mother's family, my aunt and cousins. The people who knew me before I became Victoria Hale, CEO. Before all of this." "Are you sure?" "No, but I want to do it anyway." She squeezed his hand. "And I want Sophie there. I want them to see what we're building, what's real." "Okay, when?" "This weekend, Sunday dinner. It's a tradition. My aunt cooks enough food to feed a small army, and everyone talks over each other, and it's loud and chaotic, and nothing like the world I usually live in." "Sounds perfect." Sunday came faster than Ethan expected. He and Sophie showed up at Victoria's aunt's house in Queens, a modest two-story with a garden out front and the smell of garlic and tomatoes pouring from the windows. Victoria was already there, helping her aunt in the kitchen. She was wearing an apron and had flour on her nose and looked more relaxed than Ethan had ever seen her. "You made it." She hugged Sophie first, then Ethan. "Aunt Marie is dying to meet you both. Fair warning, she's going to ask 1,000 questions and probably embarrass me." "I can handle embarrassing," Ethan said. Aunt Marie turned out to be a force of nature, short, round, with Victoria's eyes and a laugh that filled the entire house. She immediately pulled Ethan into a hug that knocked the air out of his lungs. "So you're the one who got my Victoria to smile again. Come, sit, eat. You're too skinny, both of you." The house filled up quickly. Victoria's cousins, 3 of them, with their spouses and children. The noise level rose exponentially. Kids running around, adults arguing about sports and politics, someone's phone blaring music from the living room. Sophie disappeared into the chaos with the other children, perfectly comfortable. Ethan found himself at the dining table with Victoria's family, fielding questions about his work, his life, his intentions. "So this engagement," Aunt Marie said, not bothering with subtlety. "It's real? Because I read things online and I worry." "It's real," Victoria said firmly. "It started unconventionally, but it's real now." "Good. Because you deserve real, mi amor. Not these fake business arrangements your father was always pushing." One of the cousins, Lucia, leaned forward. "Remember when Dad tried to set you up with that congressman's son? What was his name?" "Richard, and he spent the entire date talking about his golf handicap. You threw your drink in his face. He made a comment about women not understanding economics. The drink was deserved." Everyone laughed. Ethan watched Victoria in this environment, surrounded by people who loved her for who she was, not what she could do for them, and saw glimpses of the person she might have been without the weight of her father's empire. After dinner, while the adults lingered over coffee and the kids played in the backyard, Aunt Marie pulled Ethan aside. "You're good for her. I can see it." "I don't know about that." "I do. She's lighter, less burdened. That's because of you." Marie patted his cheek. "But you're carrying your own burdens, yes? I can see that too." "I'm fine." Men always say that. "I'm fine." It's nothing. But fine is not the same as happy, and nothing is usually something. She smiled gently. "Victoria told me about your ex-wife, about the daughter you're raising alone. That's hard, being both parents, both providers." "I manage." "Managing is not thriving. Remember that." She glanced at Victoria, who was helping clear the table. "My sister, Victoria's mother, she spent her whole life managing my brother-in-law's expectations, managing the business obligations, managing her own dreams into smaller and smaller boxes until there was nothing left. She died managing. I don't want that for Victoria, and I don't want that for you either. What do you want for us?" "I want you to be messy, loud, demanding, alive." Marie squeezed his arm. "Life is too short to spend it managing, so make mistakes, fight, love each other badly sometimes, and then figure out how to love each other better. Just don't manage. Don't settle for fine." The words stayed with Ethan through the rest of the evening, through the goodbyes and the drive home with Sophie, half asleep in the back seat. "I like Victoria's family," Sophie mumbled. They're loud but nice. Yeah, kiddo, they are. Are we going to be part of their family? Would you want that? Yeah, I think I would. Ethan looked in the rearview mirror at his daughter, at the contentment on her face, and felt something shift. The fear that had been his constant companion for the past year, the fear of not being enough, of failing her, of making another catastrophic mistake, it was still there, but it had company now. Hope, possibility. The terrifying, exhilarating sense that maybe he could have this, could build something new without forgetting what he'd lost. The following week brought new challenges. Vanessa called to finalize the custody details before her move to Seattle. They met at a coffee shop, neutral territory, and actually had a civil conversation for the first time in over a year. I'm leaving in 3 weeks, she said. The firm wants me to start as soon as possible. Okay, we can work out the visitation schedule, summer breaks, holidays. I'm not asking for summers, Ethan, or most holidays. Vanessa looked tired. Sophie's life is here. Her school, her friends, her father, her new family. She said it without bitterness, just resignation. I'll visit when I can. She can fly out for long weekends if she wants, but I'm not going to uproot her anymore. What changed? Really? I saw her at the recital, how happy she was with you and Victoria, how much she's thrived in the stability you've built. Vanessa stirred her coffee. I spent so long trying to prove you couldn't do it alone, that you needed me. But you don't. You're doing better without me than you ever did with me. That's not true. It is, and it's okay. I'm not angry about it anymore. I'm just done fighting. She looked up. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For David, for the company, for using Sophie as a weapon. You didn't deserve any of that. Neither did you. I wasn't there, Vanessa. I was so focused on building the business that I forgot to build our marriage. We both made mistakes, but we made a pretty great kid together. Yeah, we did. They parted as something closer to friends than they'd been in years. Not forgetting what had broken between them, but acknowledging that they'd both moved on to different versions of themselves. That same week, Victoria faced her own reckoning. The first board meeting after Marcus's removal was tense. The remaining board members were watching her carefully, waiting to see if she would lead with her father's iron fist or forge her own path. Victoria chose neither. I want to restructure how we operate, she told them. My father built this company on aggressive acquisition and market dominance. That worked for his generation. But times have changed. I want us to focus on sustainable growth, ethical practices, treating our employees like humans instead of assets. Gerald, the old guard, frowned. That's going to impact profits. Short-term, maybe. Long-term, we'll build loyalty and stability that's worth more than quarterly gains. Victoria looked around the table. I know this isn't what my father would have done, but I'm not my father, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life trying to be. The vote was closer than she would have liked, but it passed. 6-5 in favor of the restructuring. Afterward, she called Ethan, voice shaking. I did it. I actually did it. I knew you would. They could have voted it down, could have challenged me. But they didn't, because you made the case and you stood by it. Ethan smiled. You're not managing anymore, you're leading. It's terrifying. Good. That means it matters. The weeks folded into months. Sophie adjusted to the new normal, splitting time between Ethan's apartment and occasional stays at Victoria's penthouse, which slowly started accumulating personal touches. Photos on the mantle, Sophie's drawings on the refrigerator, evidence of life. Ethan's mother came to visit and spent an entire weekend interrogating Victoria with the determination of a detective. By the end of it, she pulled Ethan aside. I like her. She's tough, a little scary, but she's good for you. High praise coming from you. Don't get cocky. I'm still not convinced you know what you're doing. I definitely don't. Well, at least you're honest about it. She hugged him. Your father would have liked her too. He always said you needed someone who could keep up with you. She's fast enough to stay ahead. The comment hit Ethan harder than he expected. His father had died when Ethan was 23, before Vanessa, before the business, before any of it. He would have liked Victoria, would have appreciated her sharp mind and sharper tongue. Thanks, Mom. Don't thank me yet. I still want grandbabies. You're 32, time's ticking. One catastrophe at a time. But the idea stuck with him. The future. What it might look like. He and Victoria hadn't talked about it explicitly, where this was going, what they were building. They'd been so focused on surviving the present that the future remained this nebulous, unexamined thing. Until one night, lying in bed at Victoria's apartment while Sophie slept in the guest room, Victoria brought it up. What do you want, Ethan? Long term, not tomorrow or next week, but eventually. Honestly? Always. He thought about it. I want Sophie to grow up knowing she's loved by people who choose to be there, not people who are obligated. I want to wake up next to someone who challenges me and makes me better. I want to stop being afraid of wanting things because they might get taken away. What about marriage? Kids? The conventional stuff? I've done marriage. It didn't exactly go well. That's not an answer. Ethan turned to face her. What do you want? Victoria was quiet for a long time. I want to build something that's mine. Not my father's legacy, not the company, not the money. Something real. A family, maybe. With you. With Sophie. Maybe more kids someday, if you're open to it. You want kids? I think I do. I never let myself want them before because it felt impossible in my world. But now, she smiled. Now it feels possible. Terrifying, but possible. That seems to be our specialty. Making the impossible terrifying. Making the terrifying possible. Victoria kissed him, soft and slow. Is that a yes? To the future? To all of it? It's a maybe let's figure it out together. I can work with that. They fell asleep tangled together, the future still uncertain, but no longer quite so terrifying. 6 months after that night in the restaurant, Ethan found himself standing in the exact same spot where everything had started. Victoria had suggested they have dinner at Laurent's. For nostalgia, she'd said, and because I want better memories of that place. They arrived early, before the dinner rush. The same waiter who'd served them that first night did a double take when he recognized them. Mr. Cole, Miss Hale, it's wonderful to see you both again. Your usual table? Actually, Ethan said, I'd like that table over there, if it's available. He pointed to the table where Victoria had been sitting alone, where Marcus had humiliated her, where everything had begun. The waiter's eyes widened slightly. Of course. Right this way. They sat across from each other, the ghost of that night hanging between them. Do you regret it? Victoria asked. Any of it? The fake engagement, the contract, the absolutely insane decision to propose to a stranger? All of it. Ethan thought about the past 6 months, the fights, because they'd had them, loud and messy and real. The compromises as they figured out how to blend their drastically different lives. The moments of doubt when old fears crept back in. The harder moments of joy when they realized those fears were losing power. No, he said. I don't regret any of it. I regret that it took me so long to realize I could have this, that I deserved this. What changed? You, Sophie, your Aunt Marie telling me that managing isn't the same as living. He reached across the table and took her hand. The engagement ring, his grandfather's ring, caught the light. I spent a year convinced that the best I could hope for was surviving, not being happy, just not being completely destroyed. And then you said yes to a stranger's proposal and everything changed. I didn't say yes because I wanted to be saved. I said yes because I was tired of being alone. I know. That's what made it real. We weren't rescuing each other. We were just deciding not to be alone together. Victoria smiled, her eyes bright. That's the least romantic thing you've ever said. I'm working on it. Romance wasn't exactly my strong suit, even before everything fell apart. You proposed to me in a crowded restaurant with your grandfather's ring. That's pretty romantic. That was desperation, not romance. Maybe romance is just desperation with better timing. They ordered the same meal they'd had that first night, or at least the meal Victoria had ordered, since Ethan had been too busy having an emotional crisis to eat. The wine was the same too, though this time Ethan didn't flinch at the price. Halfway through dinner, Ethan's phone buzzed. Sophie, texting from Vanessa's place where she was spending the weekend. Mom says hi. She wants to know if Victoria is still being nice to you. Ethan showed the message to Victoria, who laughed. Tell her I'm very nice. Most of the time. She won't believe that. You terrified her the first time they met. I was protecting my territory. I'm not territory. You're right. You're much more valuable than territory. Victoria's smile was wicked. You're the person who knows where I keep my secret candy stash and hasn't told anyone. It's behind the law books in your office, and I've totally told Sophie. Betrayal. They finished dinner as the restaurant filled up around them. Couples on dates, business dinners, a family celebration at a nearby table. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that 6 months ago, in this exact spot, two strangers had made the worst and best decision of their lives. The waiter brought dessert, something chocolate and elaborate that they shared. As they ate, Ethan noticed Victoria getting progressively more nervous. What's wrong? Nothing. There's something I wanted to ask you. Okay. Victoria set down her fork and pulled a small box from her purse. Not a ring box. Something else. She slid it across the table. Ethan opened it to find a key. It's to the penthouse, Victoria said quickly. I know you have your apartment, and Sophie has her room there, and I'm not trying to rush anything or make you feel pressured. But I want you to have it, both of you. I want you to know you're always welcome, that you have a place there. With me. Ethan stared at the key, his throat tight. I'm not asking you to move in, Victoria continued, words tumbling out now. Not yet. Maybe not ever if that's not what you want. But I wanted you to have the option. To know that when I say I'm all in, I mean it. You're not temporary. This isn't temporary. Even when it's hard and we're fighting and we have no idea what we're doing, you're still not temporary. Victoria, and I know 6 months isn't very long and maybe I should wait and be rational about this, but I'm tired of being rational. Rational got me 30 years of being alone in a penthouse. Irrational got me you. Ethan closed his hand around the key. I love you. The words came out before he could stop them, before he could overthink or analyze or convince himself it was too soon. Victoria's eyes widened. What? I love you. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing, and this might be the second worst decision I've ever made, but I love you. What was the first worst decision? Marrying Vanessa. But this is a close second in terms of absolute insanity. Victoria laughed, the sound bright and surprised. I love you too. Which is equally insane because I've spent my entire life avoiding this exact feeling. What feeling? Vulnerable, exposed, completely at the mercy of whether or not you'll stay. I'm staying. Promise? Promise. Even when I don't know what I'm doing, even when we're fighting about whose turn it is to deal with Sophie's science project, or whether to attend another boring gala, even when it's hard, I'm staying. Victoria reached across the table and kissed him, right there in the middle of Laurent's, in front of all the same people who'd watched him propose 6 months ago. When they pulled apart, several tables were applauding. We're never going to live this down, Ethan muttered. Good. Let them talk. Let them watch. I don't care anymore. They left the restaurant hand in hand, stepping out into the cool evening. The city stretched around them, full of possibility and chaos, and a future they'd build together one terrifying day at a time. 3 months later, Ethan and Sophie moved into the penthouse. It wasn't a quick decision. They talked about it endlessly. Ethan worried about disrupting Sophie's routine. Victoria worried about moving too fast. Sophie just wanted to know if she could finally get a dog. Can we? She asked for the 100th time. Maybe, Victoria said, if we all agree on the breed. And the responsibilities, Ethan added. You'd have to walk it, feed it. I know, Dad. You've told me 1,000,000 times. They got the dog. A rescue mutt that was part lab, part something else, all energy. Sophie named him Rocket, and he immediately took over the penthouse like he owned it. The adjustment period was messy. 3 people learning to live together, negotiating space and habits, and all the tiny conflicts that come with cohabitation. Ethan learned that Victoria was neurotic about kitchen organization. Victoria discovered that Ethan left lights on in every room he walked through. Sophie announced that they were both weird and she was the only normal one. But slowly, the penthouse stopped feeling like Victoria's space and started feeling like theirs. Sophie's art covered the walls. Ethan's books filled the shelves. Victoria's rigid schedules loosened to accommodate spontaneous pancake dinners and movie marathons. The company continued to grow under Victoria's leadership. The restructuring she'd fought for was working. Employee satisfaction up, long-term contracts increasing, the board grudgingly admitting she might have been right. Ethan got a promotion at work, then started consulting on the side, building back the career he'd lost. Slowly, carefully, with Victoria's support and encouragement. Sophie thrived. Her grades improved. She made new friends. She stopped asking when mom was coming back and started asking what they were having for dinner. One evening, almost a year to the day after the restaurant proposal, Ethan found Victoria on the balcony looking out at the city. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "My father, wondering what he'd think of all this." She leaned back against him. "The company's different now, softer, more ethical, everything he wasn't." "Would he approve?" "Probably not, but I think he'd be proud anyway, that I found my own path, made my own choices." She turned in his arms. "He was right about you, at the end. He said you'd stay, that you'd give this a real chance. Smart man, dying man who wanted to believe his daughter would be okay." Her voice caught slightly. "I wish he could have seen this, seen us, seen Sophie running around here like she owns the place." "Maybe he does see it, somewhere. Maybe," Victoria smiled. "Or maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the point is that we're here, that we chose this, that we took something fake and made it real." That sounds like a lesson. Everything's a lesson when you're running a company. You can't help it. Corporate wisdom bleeds into regular life. "Is that what this is? Regular life?" Victoria looked around the penthouse, at Sophie's sneakers by the door, at Rocket asleep on the absurdly expensive couch, at the life they'd built in the spaces between obligation and expectation. "No," she said. "It's better than regular. It's ours." Ethan kissed her, soft and familiar, and thought about how far they'd come from that night in the restaurant. From strangers performing for an audience to partners building something real. It wasn't perfect. They still fought, still had moments of doubt, still occasionally terrified each other with the depth of what they'd built. But it was theirs, messy and complicated and absolutely real. And that was enough. The second proposal happened on a random Tuesday. No planning, no grand gesture. Just Ethan waking up next to Victoria and realizing he wanted this forever, not just for now. "Marry me," he said. Victoria blinked awake, confused. "What?" "Marry me. For real this time. Not for show, not to save face, because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life terrified with you. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "It's the only proposal you've ever heard." "Fair point." Victoria was fully awake now, studying his face. "Are you serious?" "Completely. We're already living together, already raising Sophie together, already building a life together.